All right, good evening. It is 6:02. It is August the 10th, and this is our Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen regular meeting for the month of August. And with that, we have a full board present tonight, and I hereby call our meeting to order. Mayor Pro Tem Sechrist will start with our invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, bless this gathering of citizens, staff, and elected officials. Be with us as we plan for our town to see it grow in the direction it needs to grow in. Keep us very mindful and discerning of all that we can do. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and again, good evening. We have several recognitions that our board would like to make tonight, and we will start with Alderman Miller.
No, we won't.
We won't?
No, we won't.
We will start with
Oh, Hovis.
I want to recognize the hard work that the police department and the administrative staff, Stacy, Peter, did for the National Night Out. It is something that has been recognized, and Spencer did it for the first time, and it went over really well. It was a good job, Chief. So kudos to you and your guys and getting that done. So thank you for that.
All right, very good. Thank you, Alderwoman Hovis. And the next is Alderwoman Sledge, the local government federal credit union.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hey, I understand.
I would like to thank the people who helped to put this together and to thank the local government credit union for them bringing the Shred It company to our Park Plaza on Thursday of last week to help us get rid of documents that we didn't need. And it was very much appreciated. I took full advantage of it. And just wanted to say thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Sledge. And Mayor Pro Tem Sechrist has several memorial recognitions to make.
Okay, I'd like to take a moment to recognize Ron Turbyfield. He was a 1975 graduate of West Charlotte High School, and I'm sure he was in the band there, and they had an awesome band and still do. And we wound up being lucky enough for him to land here in Rowan County. He was an educator all of his life. He was a band director at West Rowan High School, assistant principal at North Rowan Elementary School, and then he wound up going to Hanford Dole Elementary School. So he was at several schools in this area. His wife, Kim, was our media coordinator at North Rowan Middle School. After retiring, he did like many teachers and went back and got certified to teach exceptional children, taught at Nazareth High, and he wound up going to A.L. Brown High School and Hickory Ridge High School. His last position, and this is what I especially want to remember him for, was as Executive Director of Communities in School. All of the North Rowan schools are the beneficiaries of Communities in School, and it is an excellent program. I used to work in it to keep students in school and give them the support that they may need. It works in helping the families, help the students. He was a devoted musician, and he also started the Rowan County Big Band, which I know many of you heard perhaps at the Salisbury Symphony, the 19-piece band that is played all over the county. He left a wonderful legacy of what he did with students and with his family. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize him for the impact he made on the children in this area. And I also want to take a minute to recognize Miss Gloria Bradshaw, who was a devoted member of the North Rowan Elementary School staff, and we lost her over the weekend. She is going to leave a big void too. She was like the heart of that school, and the staff is pretty upset about it. So think about it. If you're at North Rowan Elementary School, be sure you tell them how sorry you are that we lost Gloria. She was in Church Women United with me too, and she was a very, very special person.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Are there any other recognitions from the board at this time? All right, hearing none, we are now to the point of adjustments to an adoption of the agenda before you. This time, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
The motion by Mayor Pro Tem, is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Hovis. All in favor? All opposed? All right, our agenda is approved unanimously. And so with that, we will now move to the public comment section of our agenda. At this time, we will invite anyone that wishes to make public comment to be able to come forward. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes for their time. And if you will, when you approach, please approach the podium and please state your name and address for the record. So with that, is there any public comment? Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ronnie Smith. I think I know everyone here very, very well. I had the pleasure of being here last month when we talked about the Yadkin River Park. I only have 3 minutes, and it's a public comment, so I'll be as brief as I can. I have 3 things to do tonight. Number one, to thank you so much for your service to Spencer. That is deeply appreciated by so many folks in Rowan County. Number 2, this afternoon, I had the pleasure of meeting with the Winterfest Committee, and I got as excited almost about that as I did the Yadkin River Park project. And I fully endorse that, and I want to encourage you to fully support that. The ladies in the back of the room have done an outstanding job so far, and I'm very, very proud to be at least knowledgeable of what will happen, hopefully this year, assuming the mask and everything don't interfere. I really feel good tonight. My last item, and I'm down to probably my last minute, we have an old saying at Food Lion, and in my household, it goes like this: the impossible we do immediately. Miracles take just a little bit longer. Last month, we presented a challenge to this community, and I'm here tonight, and I'll be as brief as I can. I have a letter, and it's addressed to Joe Morris, and I'll present it to Peter. Dear Town of Spencer, on behalf of your many friends in Rowan County, the Friends of Rowan, we're pleased tonight to enclose a check in the amount of $250,000 payable to the Town of Spencer for the Rowan County Yadkin River Park project. We trust this payment will allow the Town of Spencer to start and complete Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Yadkin River Park trailhead at the Yadkin River. Thank you a million times over, and thank the Town of Spencer for supporting this magnificent project, which will definitely improve the quality of life for all of the citizens in Spencer and Rowan County. May God bless each one of you. I have a check for $250,000. That is one of 3 checks we received since last month. We've gotten several more, not quite that magnitude, and I'm very proud tonight to give Spencer over $250,000 for this project.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you.
I had to bag, bar, and steal that.
Hopefully the check's good.
Hopefully it is.
Mr. Smith, on behalf of our board and the Town of Spencer, we want to thank you and Friends of Rowan. I know there's been a lot of work that's gone into this over the last several months, and we so greatly appreciate you and Friends of Rowan stepping up and helping out, and we are excited to get this project moving. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, with that, are there any other public comments tonight?
Certainly can't top that.
Sit in.
But I will note,
You got a check for
I will note that that check is the exact amount that Jeff Bezos is charging for tickets to go into suborbital space. So,
Sorry, you gave it.
so just keep that in mind if you ever really want to get rid of me. But no, I do want to be serious for a moment and say that Ronnie has been the heart and soul of the Yadkin River Park project. And, you know, he's also given us other funds. I think we're probably up to about $380,000 or so that has come through the Friends of Rowan. And so this community, we were meeting the other day on another subject, and I said, you know, you are in rarefied air when people are showing up at your door to do things like that because you're doing the right thing. And so the community should feel good about what you're moving toward and having the support of people that believe in you. And so in a day and age where people are taking their money and going to outer space, there's still people in this community that are investing. And this is a great thing for Spencer, and I'm glad to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. All right, are there other public comments this evening? All right, hearing none. Stacy, have we received any written comments? Okay, thank you very much. Again, Mr. Smith, thank you very much. All right, with that, we will move on to our consent agenda. We have quite a few items on our consent agenda tonight, mainly minute approval, several budget ordinances related to special projects that we have going on, a facade grant repair project grant, and then also several lien notices. And so with that, is there any discussion, any request to remove any items from the consent agenda? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion, we approve.
All right, there's a motion.
I'll second.
There's a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. And we will now move to item 7, and we will welcome forward our Spencer Events Committee to provide us with an update this evening. And you do have an attachment as well that was not in your regular agenda packet, but the information that you got supplementally tonight.
Mayor, if it's okay, I'm happy to start this off, and of course, we've got a few people in the room who likely want to add into the conversation, but we do have a great update related to events in Spencer. I wanted to rewind to last fall when I arrived here, and at that time we started trying to organize something, which turned into our Hometown Holidays drive-in. And at that time, my understanding was there was a group, Hometown Holidays, that was a entity that helped us organize that event. And it was a springboard to know that we have a lot of interest in having people gather and enjoy the community events here in Spencer. And Mr. Morgan this year has inspired more people to get involved in planning events, which we've seen in the so far in the course of, for example, the cruise-in event in June that was very successful. And things continue to evolve. The group of people that planned the cruise-in event are planning another one in October. And then there's another group of people that started their wheels turning on what's now known as Winterfest, which is going to be the first weekends in December on Friday and Saturday at the Park Plaza area. And what we received is some information that has kind of come full circle for me, because as it turns out, Hometown Holidays is another word for an organization that has kind of ebbed and flowed over the years here in Spencer, called the Spencer Partnership. And that is the 501c3 nonprofit entity was created decades ago, I believe, to do a number of things in town, including events. And there's a group of people who I think are interested in putting some energy back into this group that can really help us achieve the vision in town, events being part of it. And the events are, I think, the tip of the spear in terms of what they can accomplish. But part of what they would like to do is create a new website. Of course, the town's now launched its new town website, spencernc.gov, but we have heard from this group that thinks there needs to be kind of a standalone website to attract excitement here in town for events and other things. And they've worked to get a proposal that, when I look at our events budget for this year, a total of $15,000. Their proposal of using $2,000 of that to accomplish a standalone events website, I think would be a well-served source from the town to the Spencer Partnership. And they are inspired by a few things. One is the event is going to resemble a German Christmas market, and they've looked to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and also in this area, they've looked to the October tour and the Piedmont Players and kind of how they're marketing themselves. And so there's a proposal they received to do that. I believe we have the funding in place to accomplish that with the existing events budget. And the other thing they want to do is a community campaign in partnership with Friends of Rowan to invite people to help contribute to the Spencer Partnership, to do things like host events, fund things like art camps. For example, there was the art camp this summer, exhibits, workshops, and so on. So that's all really exciting, and that's just an introduction. I would invite Mr. Morgan to add in whatever he'd like at this point. And of course, we do have with us tonight Sherry Mason Brown and Kimberly Lentz with us, representing the folks who are organizing the Winterfest series.
All right, thank you.
Well, I'm very fortunate. The fact that when we started working last year to put together something, we wanted to regain the pride and rebuild the pride within the community by planning small events that would bring the community together and hopefully reconnect a lot of the people. Our demographics have changed dramatically over the past couple of decades, and we sort of got away from doing anything downtown. We used to have huge events like the Labor Day celebrations and Christmas celebrations, and we had Steam Fest Day, and this was before the Transportation Museum had really gotten up and running, when we had thousands and thousands of people here. And over the past several years, it was almost like we had gone dormant. But I wanted to bring together a lot of individuals who were dedicated in working without pay and are very diligent in wanting to bring events back to Spencer. One of the first things, as Peter said, was our tree lighting event, which had again gone dormant, and it was a small success. We wanted to build on that. So I got with Lori Deal Wilson, who had connections with the food truck industry and other businesses, and we started our first cruise in. Then I asked Kim Lentz and my wife and Sherry Mason Brown and several others to form sort of a subcommittee and start work on something that we could do in the fall or the winter around the holidays. And they took the ball and ran with it. They have done a tremendous amount of work in contacting vendors and getting things together. We wanted to have a German marketplace, which will take place on the first 2 weekends in December here in the old Park Plaza area. And rather than my talk about it, I would rather for them to talk about it, because they are the ones that have really done the workload in calling people and calling communities like Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and they have been very forthright in providing us diagrams for their booths that they have in their German marketplace. And understand that we are getting a mock-up made so that we'll know what these things are going to look like. We're going to provide 10 booths for vendors as well as tents. We're going to have craft people here, food people here, and it's going to be a what we think will be a wonderful event, something that we can use to bring more enthusiasm to the town. So Kim, would you or Sherry like to come forward and fill in the blanks? And these ladies have, I mean, they meet constantly. And again, they have done a tremendous amount of work.
As a matter of fact, we have a meeting at 7. We really were not prepared to do this entire presentation tonight.
That's fine.
But,
Just give the Reader's Digest first.
So first of all, first and foremost, when this committee formed, when we began talking about it, what we said was, we want people to have an experience, not just come to a festival, but have an experience. Have an experience that there's a Christmas tree that you're excited about, that children are singing, children are doing different activities. Families are invited, but people are out and getting to know each other. And the people that are at the Transportation Museum for the Polar Express see that there is life and activity here. I know the last time I took my grandchildren, when we rode the train, the town looked fine, but it looked asleep. It looked like there was nobody here. But how exciting it would be for something to be happening across the street. And so with that in mind, the group together began brainstorming about what it needed to look like, what it needed to sound like, what it needed to smell like. And that's kind of the path that we have taken with this. So what we'd like to have are trees and garlands, and of course Santa, and elves, and food.
And also events. We wanted to not just have it open for people to come and do the crafts, but we wanted to have ongoing events that would involve people from the community. So we wouldn't be solely relying on people coming from Polar Express, but we would also be having something that the community and people from around the community would want to come to. So we're kicking off the whole event with a veterans salute. And it's going to be the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And so we thought that since our event is the weekend before December 7th, that would be a good way to kick off the event. And then later that night, we would have the Christmas tree lighting. And so it would be, the kids would be gathered around and there would be a countdown, and then you turn on the lights of this hopefully big Christmas tree that we envisioned. And then throughout the 2 weekends, we're going to have a Freeze Your Buns run. And we have the Rowan Runners Club is working on that, and David Freeze is thrilled we're highlighting him because it's Freeze Your Buns. So we also have lots of different events for the kids. They're going to be decorating some cookies that look like sweaters, and so they do their ugly sweaters. Meanwhile, the older kids and adults can be creating an ugly sweater, and we'll have an ugly sweater contest. Piedmont Players Theater is going to do on the second weekend a skit or something on the stage. Hopefully one of their play this winter is Frozen, so that goes in with our theme. And to go along with the Frozen idea, we have this huge 25 by 25 by 17 high bounce castle that looks like an ice castle, and so that's for the kids, and that would be a big visual coming across the street from the Transportation Museum. So we have lots of activities planned. We're getting the bands involved with the local high schools, and then we also have musicians coming from different churches. So the idea is to get as many people in the community as possible. We've got some of the dance troops already lined up to perform. So, what else? Any questions?
How will this tie in with the holiday parade? Will that be about the same? No, the holiday parade is earlier, isn't it?
It is.
Thanksgiving.
It is.
Right.
My understanding, though, is your group is working with the parade organizers.
We are. The first meeting is next week with them. And so, in fact, I had a call from Hen today, and she's thrilled that Spencer is going to be working with them for the parade. So, we also helped to get some of their advice for us for our festival.
Yes, and as we said, as Ronnie said earlier, Ronnie Smith, we met with him this afternoon. We needed some expertise in fundraising and just general who to approach and how to approach them, and he's just been a wonderful resource for us. We thank you very much. Thank you. So,
Wonderful. We appreciate all the work that y'all are doing. Let us know how the board can continue to help. I think
We
one of
could
the
use
things
that
was the
website.
request for the website. And so, I don't know that it necessarily takes an action of our board, because we've authorized that in our budget. I think if the board is in general consensus to let the manager coordinate that. Is there any discussion or any questions specifically on the website piece of it from the board?
No.
This mentions $1,750 and then $150 for monthly maintenance. Is that 2,000 going to cover the period of time, or is there a plan to go forward with that?
I think that's a great question.
One of the ideas that we have and that we're planning on, and we talked to Ronnie about this today, is sending out a letter from the Spencer Partnership, which was known as Hometown Holidays, but technically the name is the Spencer Partnership, and it's a 501c3 organization. And we would like to send this letter out to not just people in Spencer, but friends, people that we think would support all of our different activities. And so we're thinking that the $150 maintenance fee for the website moving forward, after this event, would be funded by the Spencer Partnership.
And my understanding is then that website will then serve a greater purpose beyond just the Winterfest, is that right?
Correct. We want to design it, because of the time frame involved, it's probably too ambitious to get everything on there right now. So for the moment, it will be geared toward the Winterfest. But the idea, and it will be developed so that we can plug all of the Spencer events in. So you'll have one place to go, and then depending on the season, that is the event that would be highlighted.
Something I just thought of, if y'all can get in touch with Carol Alley and Mark Alley for the North Rand alumni, they got everybody that's graduated from North Rand, and get this letter out to them. I think you'll get people from out of town that will send.
Oh, that's excellent.
money.
Thank you. Yes.
And also, in the parade this year, is there a possibility Spencer can do a float that advertises there? I mean, I would like to see that.
So, yes, the answer is yes. Peter and I've talked about that. We're going to find a way to make that happen, and our hope is that we can actually have floats for each of the area schools as well. We're going to make it a big North Rowan show.
I'm going to go to the parade again.
Really?
So more to come on that, but we're going to find a way to make that happen.
thank you. And anybody
Yes.
that has suggestions of people for us to send these letters to, just send that information to us.
Well, I appreciate all of your work. Sam, your work as well. Peter, I know you've been meeting as well. We've got a great group of folks, and I just appreciate the fact we've got folks in our community that are willing to step up, that are willing to volunteer their
And
time
that's
to make
what-
things like
that's
this
what
happen.
we wanted. We wanted people to become enthusiastic again, that they would want to volunteer to work on things. And I just hope that snowballs from here. I really do.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for all of your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you.
right, the next item is receiving an update on the Community Conservation Assistance Program from Cindy Safrit, but my understanding is Ms. Safrit is not able to be here tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we'll coordinate with her to be here in September.
Thank you. All right, item 9 is considering a resolution 21-017 in recognition of Creek Week.
Yes, so at the very rear of your packet, there's not likely a number 17, but the very last pages in your packet, you'll see the proposed resolution in recognition of Creek Week in Spencer and Rowan County. Of course, Mayor, you and Mr. Morris and others are involved in the planning of all these events, and I don't know if Joe wants to add anything, but this is a great series of events coming up, and we're looking forward to it.
Great, and I appreciate that. We are Spencer's gateway to Rowan County, and the only community, a municipal community, that has riverfront property. And so because of that, our waterways are very, very important to our community. They always have been for manufacturing and industry, for agriculture, for domestic use purposes. And so with that, I think Rowan Creek Week is a great way to bring recognition within our community to the value that our waterways provide to us and the importance of taking care of them. So with that, I will read Resolution 21-017 in recognition of August 21st through 28th, 2021 as Creek Week in Spencer and Rowan County. Whereas the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the town of Spencer, as a representative public entity, acknowledges the importance of water quality and water supply as an essential resource for achieving and maintaining community health, economic stability, and long-term community prosperity. And whereas access to clean waterways, creeks, streams, rivers, and lakes for recreational, scenic, agricultural, and economic development purposes is a fundamental component of community life. And whereas the town of Spencer aspires to the continued health and economic welfare of its citizens who value clean water for domestic consumption, agricultural use, and as an industrial resource. And whereas the town of Spencer acknowledges the importance of good stewardship and proper management of water resources through thoughtful land development, deliberate and ongoing efforts to reduce sources of pollution and responsible consumption. And whereas a variety of public agencies, advocacy groups, environmental educators, and citizens have organized and intend to implement a week-long celebration to promote water quality, conservation, and general awareness of the indispensable nature of clean water through education and proactive community engagement. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the town of Spencer firmly and unanimously adopt this resolution 21-017 recognizing Creek Week in the town of Spencer, North Carolina for the week of August 21st through 28th, 2021, and encourages all citizens to participate in activities and programs to address the important issues confronting water quality and water supply. And so with that, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 21-017? So motion by Mr. Morgan, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bish. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That is approved unanimously.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I might mention that you can sign up on a website and get notifications about everything that's going on, and they're sending those out on a regular basis. I got one today about the opportunity to go and see our water supply and how it's managed. So, there's a lot of events going on during that week.
There are a lot of really neat opportunities. You can look at the schedule. I know one of them, they're actually going to do a tour of the High Rock Lake Dam.
Right.
We have several events going on in the town of Spencer. On the 22nd of August, we'll be doing an event out at Yadkin River Park. Mr. Smith, I hope you're going to be able to attend because we're actually going to be talking about Spencer's grand plans for the Yadkin River Park. But that'll be in conjunction with Davidson County and Rowan County and the Yadkin River Keeper. And Davidson County is starting a Creek Week. This will be their first year that they're doing it. So we're doing a jointly planned event. That'll be an exciting day because there's going to be a bike ride from Salisbury that will be traveling down Salisbury Avenue here out to the river. And then once they're there, the Yadkin Riverkeeper is also planning a cleanup of the river there. And then around 5 o'clock or so, there'll be an educational program. My understanding there's going to be food trucks or a food truck. There's going to be music and event and activities at the Yadkin River Park on the Davidson County side. And then that evening, there is a sunset paddle on the river. So lots to do on the 22nd. On the 25th, is that right?
22nd.
23rd, there's a Stand Back
The
Trail.
23rd, there is a nature hike at Standback Forest. That'll be guided by Three Rivers Land Trust. And then on the 25th, there is, that Thursday evening, there is a wood duck box building demonstration. The town of Spencer is partnering with Ducks Unlimited. And so if you want to learn how to build a duck box, you can come out and they will demonstrate that. And they're going to donate those boxes they make to put in Standback Forest. So lots going on in Spencer and elsewhere around the community. Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Okay. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 21-016 to amend the town charter to establish staggered 4-year terms for the town of Spencer for both alderman and mayor. And with that, I will let Mr. Deese give an update from our legal counsel, specifically regarding this process.
So tonight you had your public hearing last night, and so tonight you can take action on adopting the ordinance, which is the first proposed action, is to adopt the ordinance to amend the charter. And if you recall, this is all that you're obligated to do. You can amend your charter by ordinance, but you've chosen in this process to only make the ordinance effective upon the passing of a referendum, set for this November 2nd election. And so the ordinance is drafted to include the changes that would change potentially the mayor's term from 2 to 4, alderman from 2 to 4 years, staggered terms, and then the process for staggering the terms that we've discussed before. The first election, the 3 highest vote getters would get 4-year terms, and the next 3 highest vote getters, those seats would then be eligible for 4-year terms 2 years later at the next election. And then the second proposed action is to adopt the resolution calling for a special election, which is how you get the referendum on the ballot for November 2nd. And per your wishes and discussion, we've presented that resolution and the questions as they will go to the state, which will help with the final ballot language. They would be split into 2 questions, one specifically for the mayor and one specifically for the alderman seats to go from 2 to 4 years. And so the second action would be to adopt the resolution. And from there, Stacy and I will run the public notice that the referendum is going to be on the ballot. We will work with Brenda McCubbins at the Board of Elections to get the ballot language in. I've been communicating with her already. As long as we get that in mid-August, in the next week or so, she said we would be fine. And then if it passes, we would have a final notice to the public that it passed. And it would take effect at the following election. 2 years later would be the first round of 4-year terms.
Thank you, Mr. Deese. And so I will remind the board and all those watching tonight that the intent of this is to provide additional consistency in our board moving forward, while also allowing a gradual transition of knowledge. The way that our current system is set up, board members and the mayor serve 2-year terms. They are all up for re-election at the same time. And so there is that potential, as we've seen in the past, that you can have a complete changeover of a board. And what that can sometimes lead to is a very steep learning curve for a brand new board when everyone is new. And so what we've recognized is a need to allow a staggered approach where we're not having that chance of complete turnover at one time, to provide consistency with the board and the objectives and projects that future boards beyond us are trying to accomplish. And so that is the reason for this. Again, it will not take effect until 2023. At that election would be the first 4 aldermen and mayor. Would then be 4-year terms, and then subsequently 2 years after that, at the next election, they would then stagger for another 4-year term. That way we are able to get on this 4-year staggered term cycle. So with that, I will read ordinance 21-016.1, and this is specifically to amend the town charter to establish staggered 4-year terms for the town of Spencer and Board of Aldermen. And then subsequently after this resolution, or after this ordinance, we will then look at a resolution that actually calls a special vote at the upcoming election in November to allow our citizens to vote whether or not this is something that they want to follow through with. So, ordinance 21-016.1, be it ordained by the town board of the town of Spencer, North Carolina, as follows. Section 1, that pursuant to General Statute Section 160A-101 and 102, Section 6 of the Charter of the Town of Spencer, Session Law 1901-109, and as amended by SL 1903-258, is hereby amended to delete the section as written and substitute in full the following. Section 6, Term of Office. The tenure of office of said mayor and term of office of said alderman shall be 4 years until their successors are elected and qualified as hereinafter provided. The terms for the 6 aldermen shall be staggered so that the mayor and the 3 candidates receiving the highest number of votes in the 2023 election shall receive 4-year terms, and the remaining 3 seats would be filled by those candidates who receive the next highest number of votes, and those members would receive 2-year terms. In the 2025 election and every 4 years thereafter, the member seats who received a 2-year term in the 2023 election would be up for election to 4-year terms, and those seats would be elected to 4-year terms in every election 4 years thereafter. In the 2025 election and every 4 years thereafter, the member seats who receive a 2-year term in the 2023 election would be up for election to 4-year terms, and those seats would be elected to 4-year terms in every election 4 years thereafter. In the 2027 election and every 4 years thereafter, the mayor and the members' seats who receive a 4-year term in the 2023 election would be up for election to another 4-year term, and those seats would be elected to 4-year terms in every election 4 years thereafter. Section 2, that all ordinances or the parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are repealed to the extent of such conflict. And Section 3, that this ordinance shall be effective only after it is submitted to and approved by a vote of the qualified voters of the town of Spencer pursuant to a special election for the purpose of submitting the ordinance to a vote by referendum allowed by General Statute Section 160A-102 to be included on the election ballot of November 2nd, 2021. As adopted the 10th day of August 2021, subject to our board's vote. And so with that, are there any questions from the board? Any discussion? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the ordinance to amend the town charter to establish staggered 4-year terms for the town of Spencer alderman and mayor.
All right, there's a motion by Alderwoman Sledge. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Ms. Hovis. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? All right, that is approved unanimously. And so with that now, we need to consider a resolution that would call for a special election for the purpose of allowing our citizens to vote on the ordinance to amend the charter as we just read. And so with that, the resolution is before you, and I will read that now as well. Whereas pursuant to General Statute 160A-102, the Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen Board enacted an ordinance on August 10th, 2021, amending the charter of the town as set forth in Section 6 of the 1901 Charter, Session Law 1901-109 of the Town of Spencer, and is specifically amended by Session Law 1903-253 to implement 4-year staggered terms for the members of the board and mayor. Whereas pursuant to General Statute 160A-102, the ordinance provides that it will become effective only if approved by a vote of the people. Now therefore be it resolved by the board that 1, an election is hereby called for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, for the purpose of determining whether the members of the board and mayor shall be elected for 4-year terms on a staggered basis as follows. Members of the town board and the mayor would be elected for 4-year terms, and the terms would be staggered so that all of the terms do not expire in the same year. In order to stagger the terms, the mayor and the 3 candidates who receive the highest number of votes in the 2023 election would be elected to 4-year terms. The remaining 3 seats would be filled by those candidates who receive the highest number of votes, the next highest number of votes, and those members would receive 2-year terms. In the 2025 election and every 4 years thereafter, the members' seats who received a 2-year term in the 2023 election would be up for election to 4-year terms, and those seats would be elected to 4-year terms in every election 4 years thereafter. In the 2027 election and every 4 years thereafter, the mayor and the members' seats who received a 4-year term in the 2023 election would be up for election for another 4-year term, and those seats would be elected to 4-year terms in every election 4 years thereafter. 2, pursuant to General Statute Section 163A-1592 and recodified by Session Law 2018-146, the County Board of Elections is hereby requested to conduct the election herein described, and the town clerk is directed to forthwith deliver a copy of this resolution to said Board of Elections. 3, pursuant to the General Statute 160A-102, the town clerk shall cause to be duly published in accordance with General Statute 163A-1592 as recodified by Session Law 2018-146, a notice of the election hereby called. 4, the election shall be held in accordance with Article 27, Chapter 163A as amended by Session Law 2018-146 of the General Statutes of North Carolina. 5, proposed language for the ballot referendum shall be in 2 questions. A, question 1, shall the ordinance adopted by the town board on August 10th, 2021, which would amend the town charter by changing term lengths for aldermen from 2 years to 4 years, 4-year staggered terms be approved. B, question 2, shall the ordinance adopted by the town board on August 10th, 2021, which would amend the town charter by changing term length for mayor from 2 years to 4 years be approved. 6, this resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption and shall replace any and all previously adopted resolutions. As adopted this 10th day of August 2021, subject to a vote of the board. And so with that are the questions on Resolution 21-018. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that resolution is approved unanimously. Mr. Dees, thank you very much for your
Yes,
insight
thank you for
and
your hard
counsel
work.
in getting us to this point. All right, so we will now move on. At this point, we will receive an update presentation from the Police Chief Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you. Some time ago, Chief James spoke to me about the possibility of putting together this particular board, advisory board, and we got together a list of folks who expressed a willingness to participate in and be involved in the work of said advisory board. We held our first meeting and we began to get to know each other. We listened to Chief James and to Mr. Franzese, our great town manager, to share their vision and ideas of where they'd like to see this go. We also shared our common ideas and visions for where we'd like to see this go. We listened to each other, we asked questions. And as a result of that, we moved to developing a set of goals to help us get where we want to be with this advisory board and accomplishing the things that we think are so vitally important to our police department and our community here in Spencer. After we worked on those things, got a lot of feedback and input from each other, we asked one of the members of our board, Magdalene, you'll come forward, to use her great expertise in putting together the flow chart for you with the goals and what we want to accomplish. And I'm going to have her present those and answer any questions you may have about it. I just want to say one thing when it comes to goals. Remember, it wasn't the rabbit who won the race, it was the turtle.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you. As Mr. Shepard mentioned, my name is Magali Langhorn, and in about 2 weeks, I will have been a proud resident of Spencer for a year. Joined the Spencer community from New York, at the end of last August. Wonderful. Since there was no end in sight to my current telecommuting posture, I'm still telecommuting and a resident of Spencer with my mother here, Marie Langhorn. So what I also learned in a town a bit smaller than New York is that it's not uncommon for the chief of police to randomly stop by and chat with the Spencer residents and check on my mom's well-being. And one day when Chief James stopped by, he had an application with him to become a member of the Citizens Advisory Board. And so I was eavesdropping on my own Zoom meeting on the CAB meeting that month. And I said, this is an amazing initiative. And it's something that I'd like to be a part of and add as much value as I possibly can. I think it's an extremely proactive and insightful initiative. So we're here to talk to you today about the good work that the group has done. So you'll see on the next couple of slides our mission statement. And I think this is a powerful one, and I'll just read it to you because the work streams that we've outlined and the goals are really intended to ensure that we execute on the mission statement overall. So obviously the mission of the CAB is to create a forum of citizens and leaders from within the town of Spencer citizenry to collaboratively address the immediate and future needs of the Spencer Police Department by researching, planning, reviewing assigned and selected cases or matters, providing advice on department policies, and recommending solutions that will integrate and prioritize best case practices. And obviously personnel matters are not discussed as they are confidential. So if we go 2 slides over, I won't get too granular, but we thought it very important to design how we'll execute, one more slide, thank you, how we'll execute upon our mission. And we thought it necessary to design work streams that would help us prioritize particular projects to execute on the mission. And so we have 4 work streams, the community outreach work stream, the local educational outreach work stream, recruitment, and then the elected official endorsement work stream. And I'll just note that these work streams are really event driven. So you heard earlier about the great work going on in another event space. In order for us to ensure that we are engaging with the community, soliciting their thoughts and having that positive dialogue, that mutual relationship between the police department, the CAB, and members of the community, this will be extremely event driven. So to that end, the community outreach work stream, we thought it'd be best to design goals that would support events that are indicative of engagement with the community outside of law enforcement related matters. That's what truly fosters a beneficial dialogue to help us execute our mission of work. And if you have any questions, please stop me at any moment. The local educational work stream is just that, events driven to engage with our young people and our young residents through the educational system and certain events at schools, for example. The recruitment work stream, opportunities to look at our recruitment processes so that they can encourage certain diversity, equity, and inclusion processes. I know that Chief has updated us that there's been some really great progress in that area recently, so that's extremely commendable. And then finally, there's nothing like having the endorsement of your local elected officials to ensure that and to give this some visibility. So that's what that work stream is about.
So let me ask you a question with that being said. Is this something you're implementing now? Because as far as what I know, none of these things have happened yet.
Yeah, these are all proposals for your feedback. This is just a proposal project plan that we decided before we even go to the implementation phase, that we would come to you for your feedback and your thoughts before we implement.
And don't get me wrong, all these are great ideas. It's just like a good example, the recruitment work stream. And is this something that you guys are already implementing, working on?
No,
or
these
is
are,
this-
this is all in the draft proposal phase.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah. Where the, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
No, I was like, all right.
Okay. So underpinning these goals is obviously marketing and socialization. If no one knows that we're doing this, we don't have an opportunity to solicit membership engagement on the CAB or any type of visibility or exposure. So that's, a presence at the events that were referred to earlier, or a mention in the local in the local newspaper, right, or something like that. But that's the socialization effort
So
underpinning these.
obviously, I'm going to be hitting you up with more questions as you talk.
Oh no, please,
Get
please,
ready.
please do.
So here we go again. So these things that you're proposing, I mean, they all sound great. Everybody's always got great ideas. It's just putting the ball in motion. I mean, the reaching out to the kids at the local educational, which that's something Alderwoman is pretty good for. Engaging in on just those things. Is there a plan to actually do these things? Just like the recruitment, these things sound good, but they're not easy.
Yeah, so there are goals. Right now, there is no project plan per se. So, but we wanted to ensure that we got your feedback on the design and what we're thinking of implementing from a project plan standpoint before we put pen to paper on the actual event designing process, if that makes sense. So, we didn't want to step ahead without getting your feedback on the conceptual design of what we're proposing. Okay.
So this is, this proposal is from the feedback that you've gotten from the membership?
Exactly. So
CAA?
yes, exactly. So what you're seeing.
As a result of meetings that you've had?
Exactly. Yes, we've met. So you'll see in the next couple of slides our key milestones. So this is a compilation of the hours of work that we've done together, meeting once a month. And you'll see the key members here on the first slide. And this is what we thought collaboratively, and that would be a good proposal to get your feedback on in terms of how we'll execute.
Just one comment. Now, I've had my eyes worked on all this year, and I walk with 2 pairs of glasses. I cannot see that project plan that you have in here. If you can give us a larger copy.
Of course, we have an
Yeah, but
Excel.
we have digital copies of this in the PDF format, right? So if you access your
okay.
digital copy, you can zoom in on it. We can't right now, obviously.
Yeah.
Is it something he can pull up on the screen right now?
You can.
He pull that up?
It's gonna, I mean, we can
Is it
maximize
on the next slide?
it a little.
Yeah.
But basically and then we have the Excel, I'm sure. But it breaks down each work stream in basically an event planning perspective, and how we'll execute. But again, to your point, we're presenting a conceptual framework, to get your initial thoughts and feedback on before we actually put pen to paper down. Are there any other questions?
So I guess with that, I have a question for the board. Are you ready for them to put pen to paper?
Good thing to get this thing moving because it's been since fall of 2020.
Well, I will say I appreciate the group's effort. Obviously, it's a volunteer group, and you've already devoted a lot of effort thus far to get us to this point. So thank you for all the time that you've put into this.
Oh, thank you. And then I just happen to be the mouthpiece standing here. There's a great group of folks behind this, so.
And I can tell you that I'm one of the big cheerleaders for community engagement thing. And if there's anything that you would need from me, I'm retired now. I got time to help you.
Okay,
I can be one of the ones that'll sit as one of the elected officials through your meetings.
Wonderful.
I don't mind.
greatly appreciated.
One of the folks with
Thank you.
resources.
Thank you.
So I guess the question would be, what do you all need from the board at this point?
Chairman Shepard? Your feedback?
I think Dennis had to leave to go to the Science Lodge, but our idea was that we wanted your endorsement and your support before we move forward. And that's what the purpose tonight is, presenting it to you, that you say, yes, we agree, we endorse this proposal. And then in our next meeting, we will start figuring out how we do that. And we've already started in a sense. And I think National Night Out, as Alderwoman Hovis pointed out, that was an outreach of the PD. That's how it originated, was through police departments, but wanted to involve our community, East Spencer. And part of the idea was to reach out to all groups within our both of our communities. So I think in a sense we're doing that, but before we move forward, we need you as a board to cohesively say, yes, we agree with what you're doing, move forward. And I can assure you this young lady, with her ability, and the other folks on the board, including Mr. Black, who's president of the NAACP here, Rowan Salisbury, he's part of the group, and that's what our vision is. But everybody made it very clear that they wanted your blessings before we move forward. So once we get that, I think we're ready to go to work. And she's done an outstanding job, as have the other members.
And since we have Mr. Black in the room as well, Mr. Black, is there anything that we can do as a board to or your input on any of this as well?
No input at this time.
Mr. Black, I would ask you, I guess, if you'd come forward, please, because I do want your input, since you've been able to kind of participate in this. And I know that you have been involved with Salisbury's Citizen Advisory Board that they have as well. I guess your input would be valuable, making sure that we're heading down the right road with this.
It's just an overview of Salisbury's. What we do, we look at policy, of course, making sure that policy is in line to the 2021. We big on community policing, which of course they already discussed it on how their community policing engagement will be. We big on recruitment. As a citizen, as the president of the NAACP, Salisbury Rowan NAACP, I do have the pleasure to sit in on interviews, whether it be new hires, whether it be lieutenants, sergeants, whatever ranks may be. I do have that pleasure to sit on on those interviews. That's just a quick overview of the things that we do and have implemented in Salisbury. I would like to see it in Spencer. I know we talked about it one time before. I haven't had the opportunity to really look at and diagnose the presentation due to a hectic schedule I had, but I think it's in the right direction. I am big on the recruitment. I do want to see more minorities within the police department. We had that conversation when we had lunch together. I think, me, chief, and the town manager. So I'm looking forward to it and seeing where the board really goes. As long as we stay on track, I think they'll be all right. Well, we'll be all right, I would say.
Thank you. Appreciate that input. Okay. So I guess the board, they're looking for feedback. Is the board in agreement with at least this framework and the work streams to direct the board, the Citizen Advisory Board, to move forward?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, the next item is our departmental reports, and so we will start with our planning department. Mr. Harris.
All right, good evening. Like usual, I'll try to keep my report fairly brief. You can see that our zoning permits and all the permits we've issued have been steady. I did want to point out once again that we are seeing a large number of new homes being built in Spencer. And one thing I did want to mention, just because I saw that Leslie Talbot is here, she's on our HPC, and she's working with me. We're updating our standards for new construction in the historic districts. It just next week, the HPC is going to be reviewing 3 new homes in the historic district. And so what we want to make sure is that moving forward, since we are seeing such a large uptick in new development, residential right now, but we may see commercial development as well moving forward. We want to make sure we're ready to review those projects and make sure that they fit into our neighborhoods. The only other main point I wanted to mention in my report tonight is that we do have one new vacancy on our planning board. One of our in-town members has decided to resign his position. And so what we'll do is advertise that position. I think because our planning board is now down to 4 members, what we will probably need to do is, at the staff level, be a little bit more proactive in advertising those spots. And what I would also encourage is, as the governing board, if you do know anyone with experience in planning and development and board and commissions, feel free to talk with them, encourage them to submit a board application form. We'll be happy to receive those and go through the appropriate process. But we do want to make sure that our planning board, which is also our zoning board of adjustment, has a healthy number of members and can do its functions moving forward. Hopefully after tonight, our HPC and our CAC will both have no vacancies. So what we'll need to focus on for the planning board is making sure that they have the resources and the members they need to do their work. Do you have any questions related to our vacancies? Yes.
What is the news on these upset bids on 608 South Carolina Avenue and 308 Kane Street? Have they been?
Yes. So we did not receive any upset bids during that process. And so what we'll do is at the next month's governing board meeting, we'll have y'all decide to finalize those sales, and we'll get that done. The reason we wanted to make sure that we are not rushing that process is because when we previously had a property sold through the upset bid, we learned that there was a defect on the title. So we just want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row before we sell those properties.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I've got a question. Well, actually, I don't have a question. Every once in a while, I'll tune in on your board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have to tell you, mainly from this last board meeting, it would be very much appreciative if there was anything that your board members need to address and bring forward to the attention of whatever's going on with Spencer. I would like to see that they not use that platform of being up on the board. Their job is to do the things as far as the planning goes, not to badger or complain about staff or complain about board members. Those things are being zoomed in on. These aren't like closed sessions that these things are happening. And if they can do any better, then tell them to put their name on a ballot and run. That's all I can tell you. But I would like to see a little bit more control and restraint reference to the banter that went on at this meeting yesterday among each other. There's just no doubting my mind why you're losing probably a person. Who goes to a meeting to argue? I understand debating, but arguing is not a behavior that should be something that I think, whether it's the president of the board or even if it's you, something if you can see what you can do to control it. And if not, bring it before us and let us see what we can do to help you.
I understand. And of course, I do believe that the events that occurred at the planning board meeting last night contributed to the particular member choosing to resign. I think usually the planning board will be occupied with quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings related to special use permits, variances, and other requests. I think the reason, and I'm providing my opinion at this point, but the reason the meeting last night got a little bit off track was primarily because there was no items on the no regular business on the agenda. So we opened it up for general discussion, but what I will do moving forward is make sure that we have clear parameters for the discussion and that the discussion is related to the duties and responsibilities of the board.
Sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, I'm happy to see that our permits now take up 2 pages. That might be a first.
Well, just keep on the lookout. We'll see. Maybe we'll hit 3 pages.
Kyle, you're doing a great job.
Kyle, do you want to go ahead and at this point, just because of the timing, I know we're going to be considering a new member for the Historic Preservation Committee.
Yes.
Would you like to go ahead and introduce them at this point, and then we can consider them later in the agenda in case they have to leave for any reason?
Yes, I think
Okay.
if Joshua and Jacqueline, if you want to come up, we're going to skip forward on the agenda. So if y'all will pull up a seat here. So let me, while they're getting seated, I'll just provide a brief introductory statement on the process that's played out. As you're all aware from the pre-agenda meeting last week, there was discussion about the process that we will be using moving forward in accepting applications and reviewing them. So what we've done in this case, Jacqueline and I have both met with Joshua James, and I want to thank both of you for coming tonight. We conducted 2 formal interviews, and yesterday what we did was we called a special HPC meeting in which we did interview the candidate. All of the members had the opportunity to meet with him. We had a great discussion. There was an opportunity for all of our members to ask Joshua questions, and I think that was a very productive conversation. And the result of that meeting was a clear consensus from the HPC that they are recommending his appointment to the HPC. Unless you don't have any questions for me, I'm going to ask just very briefly if Joshua, you want to say a couple of words, and this can just be a brief statement, and then Jacqueline.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to meet with you all today and to also consider me for the HPC. I'm a new resident to Spencer and Rowan County. I moved and purchased my home in January of 2020. I really enjoy the community and want to be able to help others through the process of living in a historic district. It's a new process for myself, and I'm super excited to be a part of it. And so that's something that I want to be able to do, is to offer advice, feedback, and help interpret guidelines for others so that they can journey through the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll add my comments as well. Jacqueline Jensen, I'm your HPC chair. I just want to reiterate how important it is for us to retain good qualified members on our HPC. We have a great board, but we've had a vacancy for a long time, as you can see. It's great that we've got a new resident that's interested in this position and that has relevant experience too. One of the most, charming things about our community is its history. And so, in upholding that, the HPC is excited to welcome a new member, and we hope that you do too. So,
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
Does the board have questions? All right, very good. Well, thank you for volunteering,
Thank
and
you
it's
for
a
your
pleasure
interest.
to meet you.
Appreciate it, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if y'all have any questions about my board report or my department report?
Any questions for Kyle? All right. Thank you all. Ms. Jensen, thank you for working through the process. And I know we threw a little curveball at you, but appreciate all of you
Ms. Sledge.
working through this. Ms. Sledge?
Where are we doing, where are we on the community garden?
Okay. Are y'all okay?
we're excused. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all so much.
Okay.
So the community garden project is, if I'm being completely honest, a little bit behind. I hope we're not too far into the season that we can't accomplish a fall garden. But what we're going to do, hopefully, and I don't want to put our Sky on the spot, but I just met with her this morning. We talked about this at length, and we'll be working together moving forward to make sure that we can deliver the community garden. If it becomes necessary for us to delay until spring, that's something we will certainly do. It's just as a matter of something new that we're doing, I do think that there's a learning curve involved. And as I've said before, I personally have never planted a thing in my life. And so I'm relying on our volunteer CAC members and Sky to help us out and get this thing across the finish line.
Thank you, Mr.
Are we,
Harris. Thank you,
are
Mr.
we
Harris.
also
Doing a good job,
considering
sir.
this, are we considering this proposal from, no, for the corridor at this point?
No.
No, okay. Is that all? Yeah, well, there was something we talked about on a grant or something. Oh, but that's coming later, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
okay,
It's coming
I'm
up
sorry.
later.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
All right. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
All right, next item is our code enforcement report. Mr. Osborne.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow board members. Hope you're having a good evening tonight.
Good evening.
I present you my July open cases or cases that I have, but I'd kind of like to kind of go over my highlights for the month. I did participate in the National Night Out pretty well. Didn't have as much interest in code enforcement as I thought people would, but it's okay. I did talk to a few people, which was good. The implementation of our new software, iWork, continues. We're still looking at August 24th as our launch date, and I spoke with my project manager with iWork, and we're looking to get the portal for code enforcement reporting, or code complaints, excuse me, hopefully get up maybe between now and then. It might be early, and hopefully have that on our new website as well. I also was able to complete my database. I was bringing all the old cases that I had from the past year and a half. I've got that all sorted in there, so we'll be able to give you more accurate information over a longer period of time to kind of give you trends if that's something I can do in the future. Still learning the report system, and so that's kind of in its early stages of kind of developing the proper reports that you might want to see. I had a total of 36 cases for the month of July, and that's a little lower than the month prior to that, but a lot of that was spent on the computer, getting the software up and going and learning the process and making sure the database was 100%. I still have 23 open cases as of right now. Most of those are minimal housing cases, and a few, I call them junk piles and things like that. It takes some time for people to learn to how to get those things taken off their property, should I say. The report is a little bit missing some stuff. I'm not sure what happened with the highlights and some of the pie charts I usually have on there. So maybe what you're looking for. But other than that, pending your questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Osborne. Are there questions from the board?
Mr. Osborne, on the 5 liens that we bypassed tonight, as far as that goes, you still contact these owners when these liens go out individually each month, don't you?
Absolutely. I'm required to send out a notice of bill and a notice of a lien to the property owners.
So they do have monthly notifications or whenever mowing takes.
Whenever there's an abatement taking place, I will notify them through the mail.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Mr. Osborne.
Next is our police department report. Chief James?
Mayor, members of the board, good evening.
Good evening.
I think the most important piece of business I have is to say happy birthday, Mr. Franzese. He's a little younger than Jack Benny, and I don't know whether his mom and dad are listening, but I know they join me in saying happy birthday, Mr. Franzese. Much younger than I am, I'll certainly say that, but I did want to acknowledge his birthday. National Night Out was one of the best events that I've been involved in since I've been in this town, and I've been here almost 11 years today, I think. And I can tell you that I had a lot of good help, and I want to thank all of those folks that helped make it possible. And I want to acknowledge Cheerwine. They donated some drinks They donated some banners so we could put banners up in Spencer and East Spencer, and we had 3 of them. And I was in a panic with my penmanship and lack of artistic ability. How are we gonna get these banners done? Well,
Did a good job.
Jackie Jensen in the back of the room did all of the banners very quickly, 2 of them on her lunch hour while she was at work. And Joel put all of the signs up in both towns. So, you talk about people working together. We're so blessed in this town to have that. I will tell you that Bishop Brown and whosoever will come church, I've never seen anything. I thought the military had arrived. They started setting up tents. They served 600 hot dogs. They provided the drinks and a bounce house that the kids thoroughly enjoyed. I think I saw maybe Rocco and Stella in there. I mean, it was just a great, great night. And even Mr. Treem, and I don't know whether it was old Spencer money that he got from working here, but he pulled out $100 bills and said, "Give this to Bishop Brown." So I should acknowledge his kind gesture to help pay for the food. Great, great event. And Harmon Sign, they took care of the banners at no charge. Harwood Signs, I think I said that wrong. So thanks to what they did as well. But great, great night. I have provided you the statistical data, as I always do. Be glad to answer any questions about that or anything that you may have whatsoever regarding police operations.
And Chief, you know, I'm gonna always have a question.
Absolutely.
It was brought to my attention, but after speaking with the manager, I think he said that you and the fire chief handled the call outs with the fire department. That's resolved. And I'm saying this just because it was brought to me from community, so I'm saying it during a public meeting to let people know that the matter's resolved, you guys are responding, correct, to all that?
We have made some changes there, and I will say that I had no idea till I called the comm center that East Spencer years ago implemented that their police department goes on all fire calls. So we have took corrective action there, and I've talked to the communication center supervisor, and that will be taken care of. So thank you.
And other than the big news of Peter's birthday, the manager's birthday, I think the board and myself just realized that you're running for sheriff over in Davidson County. Is that not right?
Well, that's
some
what I've been
news that
told.
I need to bring to you, or you need to bring to us. I mean, I'm trying to figure this one out, you know, because the community has already brought it to me, so
Right.
everybody else knows but us.
Well, I will tell you that for several months I have prayed over this decision, and God placed something in my heart. I don't know why He did it. I may not win the election, but yes, I did announce last Thursday night that I do intend to seek the office of sheriff of Davidson County. I want to continue to work here. I love this town. I love the people here, and I've given 11 years of my life, and I want to continue to do that. And I hope to have a job if I get beat in the election. And I made that. I had that discussion with Mr. Franzese, and I know him to be a man that will honor his word. So I said, now, before I do this, I'm leaning towards doing it. And have I still got a job? And he said, yes. So I hope that will be the case.
Well, just know that that's a great ambitious move, speaking from one chief to the next. It's, and I don't see where you'll fail personally. The Davidson County that I know, I think we're gonna be losing us a chief. Either way, I know you think you're worried about having a job here, but we're gonna have to start worrying about having a chief.
Well, there's a lot to go before that happens, and the current sheriff is a great gentleman. I can't predict the outcome of the election.
There's a lot you're gonna have to get ready to do. You gotta shake a lot of hands and kiss a lot of babies coming from an ex-deputy. I did more of that than the sheriff did, so you got a lot of work in front of you.
When is
that election? This year?
Well, the primary will be probably in March unless they move it back to May. and then the actual election will take place next November.
He's got a lot to do.
So
You gotta get on it now.
I don't know, I thought campaigning in the summer was gonna be rough. But you got another 6 months of campaigning to do. Yes.
He's just
Yes,
getting
sir.
started.
Yes.
Chief, best
any-
of luck. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. And any advice you veterans can give me, I'll certainly take it. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good luck, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you very
Other
much.
questions for Chief related to his report? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, next is our fire department report. Chief Lanning.
Mayor and the board, how are y'all this afternoon?
Good. How are you?
Good, sir.
Not complain. Just a few things. I wanted to touch on National Night Out. I think Chief James and his crew did an amazing job, especially with that being our first event. We took part in it. I kind of stopped by, showed face, and shake hands. And with ISO being the next day, I was not there for the entire event, but from my staff, it went very well. On here, I just kind of listed two things were issues with apparatus. I think that by the next day after I'd sent this to Stacy, those had been resolved. So all apparatus is in service and functional. We have received 3 more additional part-time applications, so that is a positive and assist us in growing our staff and ensuring adequate coverage is provided 24/7 here in town. And the last, and for me, the most important part of this is ISO has come, it's gone, and it's over. So it's a lot of weight off my shoulders, off of our staff's shoulders.
What did we score?
I will know in 60 to 90 days. I think this wait is going to be much worse than the preparation, at least for me. I am very optimistic. Obviously, my standard is pretty high. So I think we're going to do well. I don't know if I'll meet my own personal standard for myself, but we did pass the 9S, which is just a minimum requirement to be a functioning fire department in the state of North Carolina. They were able to give us that information the day of, which was no doubt just some basic stuff. Do you have the bare minimums on the truck? A month, they will know. They'll send it up to New Jersey to the actual ISO individuals. They'll grade it, quality assurance, and send it back to the state. They'll send that to the fire marshal, and then I'll receive notification. So October, November, hopefully we'll know. Hopefully sooner, but and that is all that I have for you, unless you have any further questions for me.
Well, obviously, again, here I go with my comments. Thank you again for your attendance and your people being at the National Night Out.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry if because I just thought about it. I left you out in all the thank yous. I saw you
Perfectly
and your regime of women. You know, which
There
was
wa-
great.
there
I
was.
mean,
There's quite a few
that's what
women there.
everybody kept looking at out there. They were looking at a
Absolutely.
bunch of women firefighters. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, I keep tearing you up on what we're doing with the ISO, because for the rest of you folks, if you didn't realize it, the better he does on that, the more your escrow for your insurance looks really good in your pocket for whatever they do good on their end. And so if you got high expectations reference to what you do there, thank you for the community for looking out for us.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, be sure to thank all of your staff. I know
Absolutely.
you put a lot of work into getting ready for that inspection, but I know they did also.
Absolutely.
And I noticed kids getting off and on the fire trucks too.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's a good thing.
Yes. So, and again, we were able to increase our budget this year in turn, and a lot of that, or a good bit of that, was to increase our pub ed program, because it was kind of truly non-existent. But I think if we get that to these kids at a young age, it'll prepare them for the future and make my job easier. So,
Well, I want to thank you from one chief to another for your perseverance. You came in a very rocky and unstable time.
Rough
And
ride.
The things that you've done since then have helped stabilize the department, and we're hearing mostly good things now.
I appreciate it.
I'll echo that. I will say that I know you've done a lot in a lot of different areas thus far, but probably the biggest accomplishment is mending relationships with neighboring communities. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
All right, next is our Public Works report. Joel Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
Put my stuff out of the way, huh?
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Kinda. Just a reminder, that trash service will, the first week of September will be a day off because of Labor Day. And I'll mention that because there won't be another public meeting until then. So just making sure that everyone remembers that. I'll get several phone calls, but it'll be okay. In relation to the garbage truck, our new truck is actually in Kernersville being worked on. It went out of service as of the beginning of this week. A weld broke in one of the cylinders. So we attempted to get the cylinder out, but the way it pushed it, we can't get the pins out. So it's at CES being worked on. They're running the old truck right now, babying it as they can. But so far everything's okay. We'll address that situation. They were working on it today, getting me an estimate so I can get a PO, so we know exactly what it's going to take to fix it. But I'll know more information hopefully tomorrow.
They're gonna be able to fix it this week if they get a PO?
That's our intent.
So
Is
it'll be in
yeah.
operation next week, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully I'll have it back maybe by the end of the week. At worst, maybe the first of next week.
Okay.
We can put it back in service.
Okay, remind us again, how old is that truck?
It's a 2018 model.
Okay.
So it's just a little over 3 years old.
Okay.
And I'm having them look at the cylinder for if there's any warranty issues with it as well, because it's actually a weld that broke. It wasn't a rod. Normally the rods has the issues, but this is actually the weld on the cap that come apart. So if there's some warranty, then we'll deal with that issue as it comes. Right now we just want the truck fixed and back in service. It's a lot faster and holds a lot more. So the guys are really pushing it. Today's route, I think they finished at about 3:15. Normally they're done about 2:30. So it kind of pushes them a little bit to get to the landfill because they're doing 2 loads instead of 1.
Right.
So we'll get it back as soon as we can. The date for the fall mulch giveaway has been set for October the 2nd. We'll get that into, to the newsletter and to the website. I just want to announce that to make sure that everybody keeps that date available. We're going to have it same as always. It'll be the recycling will be open. You can come get it, or we can deliver it. Anyway, just let us know however you want to do it. So the last bit of information, which I thought was going to be a little later in the year, but Mr. Rand called me the other day and he's going to fit us in between two. The drainage pipe, the abandoned drainage pipe on 17th Street, we're having an issue that's conflicting for 2 different citizens. We budgeted for this, so don't think it's over and above. We budgeted for this repair. I just expected it to be October, November, because that's what Donald told me. He's actually fitting us in between 2 jobs that he has. He finished early on one and he's got some time. So he's going to get this probably started at the end of this week or maybe the first of next week. And we're going to get it knocked out and get it completed. I know these citizens will be happy about it. We've been
This
fighting.
is the abandoned one in the yards there,
Yes,
just past Yadkin.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's about 11 feet deep to the pipe, which kind of takes me out of the situation because I don't have the structure. So that's why I went to different contractors to try to figure it out. And it's been probably about 1.5 years, and Donald has finally agreed to take it on. I had to persuade him, but he's finally agreed to take it on. And everybody I went to pointed me towards Donald because he's the drainage man. So I got the best that's going to be working on it.
So what is the proposed solution?
They're going to dig down to the top where the pipe, it's got a vent in the top where they flowable filled it. The water's getting in that pipe somewhere and venting itself through there. So I don't know if they completely filled the pipe or they thought they did when they abandoned the line. He's going to dig down, actually make a drainage system out of it, pipe it up so far, and then put more like a sump in it, and then tie in drainage from around it to make sure that we get all of the avenues that it may have found a void somewhere other than just through that vent. So we're going to attach 3 legs to it on the outside of that, and then run it all the way and dump it into the actual creek, across the neighbor's driveway. So that will actually take care of that problem from now on. We don't want to go back and have to do it again. So that was his suggestion. He's shot grade. He knows what he's looking at, and not that big a pipe, because it's going to be constantly flowing. And we have seen it dry up a little bit since the dry weather's hit, but we know what winter's going to bring, and it's going to bring more rain. And once it's surfaced and done this, it's going to be there. And our thought is, I've had that water tested numerous times for city water to make sure we didn't have a leak. So we're thinking that our springs are notorious in that area. So we think a spring has found its way into that pipe, and it's pushing its way out because it's clean water. But just wanted to give you aware, like I said, it's been budgeted for it. If we can work it, Faith and I have been talking through some of this remediation money, and recoup that amount of money, we will. But for the time being, we need to get it in and get it fixed before winter hits and it gets any worse. So.
Agreed. Very good. Okay.
Is his price gonna be in that budget figure as far as?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, with the number that we budgeted, it's gonna be within. Some things went up, some things have actually come down. So it's gonna kind of vary since the quotes I got it. And the last one he gave me, I think, was in February. So we went off of that for our budget numbers. So it may vary just a little bit. It won't be too much.
Okay.
So that addresses one of our many 17th Street drainage issues.
Correct.
And I know Ms. Schaefer couldn't be here tonight.
She couldn't. No.
But
She apologizes.
That being the case, see how I say this delicately. We have kicked this can down the road long enough. And so I know I mentioned to Mr. Franzese, if there is anything we can do at a higher level within their organization, probably the time for us to do that. So,
all right.
If I can do anything, let me know.
Absolutely. I will. I'm going to get in touch with her, and then also Mr. Sloop, because inevitably Mr. Sloop is actually the person who is
funding it,
holding the money.
Yep.
And let him put the pressure, where it needs to go.
Agreed.
That sound like a plan?
Sounds like a good plan.
That was my
Thank
plan.
you.
So
thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Now, I got a question as well, because me and you and Peter reference to the NPO meeting that we had. Where are we with Salisbury Avenue? Because supposedly we had to the end of the month, referencing what we're doing with the road. I mean, what are we doing now? Right, well, that's you. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep.
I'll join you here.
No, don't go away.
Kick me
You're
off.
there too.
Just to say that based on the input we heard from the previous meeting, what we've done is we've reached out to DOT and expressed that we would prefer to wait until after our comprehensive plan process is finalized. That way, as part of the comprehensive plan, we can get public feedback in, dedicated public input meetings on the project. And so we have secured a delay of 1 year to get the restriping and the repaving and restriping done through here. So what we plan to do is, as we do in the comprehensive plan, we will at the same time consider changes to Salisbury Avenue. So there's no longer a need to rush that process.
We appreciate that very much. It's important that our citizens have input into what that might look like. And rushing that is not something we want to do.
Right.
No, that doesn't have anything to do with the NPO though, right?
Well, no, but he was at the kind of, well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
Okay.
kinda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
They're the ones that kind of make the schedule. So,
Any other questions for
is there any
Mr.
more
Taylor?
questions?
I would like to say thank you, because this is the hardest working man in Spencer. I mean, he was out shoveling rock, and I mean, big boulder rocks in this 98 and 102 degree weather himself, and working like he was, had ball and chain on him, and looked like he had black and white stripes when I looked out through the window, but he was out there just going at it for hours, and I was waiting to see you pass out. I was going to call Chief Lanning to come on over there.
Come get
So good for you.
Well,
It's good. You're
and he
welcome.
drove the tractor all night for the
Yeah.
National Night
I
Out.
didn't mention the National Night Out, but it was a great event. It really was, and I gave a lot of hay rides. I really did. Though I have to admit. But,
Don't let that secret get out. You might have to do that for our Winterfest too.
well, I don't know. It'll be a little chilly in Winterfest, but
I'll
we'll
get
need
you
a
down
covered.
jacket.
We'll get a covered. Yeah, exactly.
Joe, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, next up is our Finance Department report. Faith is coming up.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I just have a couple of things. If you come into town hall, from 1 to 5, you'll see a new face. Many of you met her tonight. Her name is Bernadette Neely. She is through Bonnie Staffing, and she's here to help with the front office. And I'm excited that she's here. Her help is greatly appreciated. It does get busy up there from time to time. And with Christy helping with payroll and accounts payable and everything, it kind of gives her an opportunity to focus on some other things while she is here. The auditors are here this week, so we're working and they're working to get our books closed out and to see where we are and what the next steps might be. It will take them a little time, but they're working very hard, and it's good to have some fresh eyes looking at things. We are still, closing the year out, and so we still have little revenues that's trickling in for last fiscal year. So hopefully within the next month or two, revenue for this year will start trickling in, and you'll see the numbers there go up some.
On our tax alarm and just taxes in general, they're coming in okay, everything's on time.
They are, we still, there's a lag with sales tax because of the way they collect it and then report it and everything, and they get it to us. So September, we should post the last for last year, which would be June, just the way that the state sends everything in. With the property tax, that should start rolling in pretty heavy. I mean, I know the county I'm in, I've already received my tax bill, so between now and December, that will pick up a whole lot.
As for last fiscal year and closing that out, we are forecasting those sales tax revenues from last year are going to be above
Yes.
what we forecast.
From what I have calculated, it does appear to be that way.
So I think that's a good sign for us moving forward this year.
And the league still is predicting, a good increase with sales tax. They send out a quarterly report that kind of gives a projection, and it still looks to be very promising.
When is our bond usually paid? Is it by June, July?
We paid that in May.
Oh,
We
really?
made our last bond payment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So that should be free and clear of that.
So I've been looking at the payments for workers' compensation for the various operations, police, fire, streets, and yards. And that's a sizable amount. Is that what the payment to
Yes.
comp is?
Yes, sir. The League of Municipalities, they handle our workers' comp. And so that's probably pretty comparable. I mean, they do a good job to keep our comps low. We do have a workers' comp audit every year. And so that should be coming up probably, I want to say, about November. And so they go through our workers' comp. And so based off of what they find there, it does affect our billing. But the League seems to be pretty reasonable when it comes to that. I know it seems high, but with the staff, and then I think they look at the type of work that they do as far as more than likely they would have more injuries on a job than someone in the office.
The other thing too, I want to clarify is, we're showing 99%, 91% spent in this fiscal year. Just want to make sure that that's clarify that those are upfront payments that have to be
Oh,
made.
yes. Yeah,
They're
those,
premiums.
those
We
were,
pay at the beginning of the fiscal year as opposed to throughout the fiscal year. So
yes,
that's why
that is
those
correct.
So a
Percentages
lot
look
of
so
the
high.
percentages that are already at the 90 and 95, that's just because it's a yearly contract.
That's right. And
It's a dividend that's being paid to an agency to forward to workers' comp.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is
Yeah, 'cause
it
they're
the same agency we use for all of our other personnel payments? The same one?
The league handles our workers' comp and our property and general liability insurance. So
Right.
when you see that, and while they're so high, they do come due in July. So, and that covers for the year. But the league handles that for us, and the League of Municipalities.
And so if you recall, and I actually believe it was the previous board went through this process maybe 3 years ago where they were actually renewing contracts on insurance and workers' comp and all of that. So that is what these are. But the reason those percentages are so high is because we've already paid the amount for the fiscal year
Yes.
that we need to.
Mm-hmm. They let us know ahead of time so we can budget for this, so we already know, and then they bill us in July.
Stuff like the things where we're not leasing any more vehicles, are we?
And not that I know of. The only
All the vehicles we're getting now, we're paying straightforward
Yes.
out, right?
as far as I know,
We
the
don't have to worry about
only
paying.
lease I know of is some fire equipment for landing and our copiers. Everything else we own. I know Pinnacle.
There may be some financing on the garbage truck. I
Yes,
believe
we
that-
do owe a loan
that
with
a lease
Pinnacle
purchase.
on the garbage truck for Joel, and that I talked with the banker, and I think it comes due in 2026.
Okay.
And that is a monthly payment we make.
Other questions for Faith? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Faith.
All right, final update is from our library. Stacy?
At the library, story time has been hosted every Tuesday about 3:30. And currently they're keeping a list of all books that have been read and are looking at giving a larger prize for the highest readers. And planning has started for the main event, which is the annual event, and it's going to be entitled Fabulous 50s. And there have been more donations of books to the library. Y'all have any questions in any of our libraries?
Any questions? All right, thank you for the update.
One thing with, my fire rate is over 1%, which means that it would give us a higher rate for workers' comp because of our DART. We, at some point, I think in 2018, days away was like reported really, really high. And so anytime that it's over 1.2 or so, that's why our insurance is that high. So even if we looked at going with someone else, it's still not going to be any lower until we work on staff, like training and different things with how you can do better with your workers' comp and, injuries and different things.
And that modifier rate, how often is that reviewed?
It may be annual. The numbers that I looked at from the league and from Travelers, they were pretty high. And so the least amount, the lower number, I think was a year or two ago. So it's kind of wonderful.
So definitely a goal that we want to work
Thank
to lower.
Is it something like the wellness program that, like, what we used to have when I was chief? If my people did their
It's more of a safety
fitness
approach.
thing, yeah,
It's more of a safety approach. So it's like your job analysis JSAs where you look at your safety of
kind of like what the ISO reports that he
I'm not
does.
exactly sure what ISO is
Okay,
for.
never mind.
But
Never
say for instance, getting inside of a vehicle or getting out of something, or with Joel's department, how they may enter a garbage truck, how they may exit off of a garbage truck. It's different things like that. So where you train your staff and then you work towards, so the least, of course, injuries that you have at work, the better your number is going to be insurance wise. So I just wanted to clear that up and give you that information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Very good. So that concludes our departmental reports. And with that, Mr. Franzese, town manager report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, and certainly want to echo all of the appreciation to the town staff, the community members, and all those that contributed as sponsors and partners for our National Night Out event. It was certainly a special evening and the start of a new tradition in Spencer, I'd say. We've got a lot of those going this year, so it was definitely a great night, and I appreciate everybody coming together to make it happen. And so just to highlight a few other items from this month's report, on the town hall project, one element that's going to be coming next week to the Historic Preservation Commission is a review of some exterior colors on the project. There was some wood cement materials for the front facade that were originally planned to be a kind of a wood tone. Now that we've gone through the process of value engineering and picking some interior colors and that sort of thing, the initial approval several years back with the wood tone in some of these areas was related to bringing some wood in the lobby to the exterior. That was removed during the value engineering, and now the recommendation from the architect and from actually Sherry Mason Brown, who's assisting us through the interior finishes, is to use a wood paint, to use a blue paint color instead of a natural wood look on. These are some, I guess, what you call accent areas in the front of the building. So Mr. Wales is going to be talking to the HBC about that next week, and get their input and make sure that everybody's okay with moving ahead on that. But just wanted to mention that to this group tonight as well.
Peter, excuse me, let's say for interrupt you. You're not talking about the Fifth Street side
No.
of the building. You're talking about the front of the building.
Yes.
Underneath the canopy,
Right.
right, that area.
Telling you.
That's fine.
All right.
We
I will
talked
say I
about-
had some very concerned citizens. I was one of them before they started putting the external cladding on the Fifth Street side, when the primer that was up there for waterproofing was Carolina blue. We were all a little concerned that Peter had been up to some shenanigans.
I tell you, Peter.
Mayor, I'll say I really like your tie tonight.
Oh, God.
We
Is
know
it
you
up?
guys called each
Is
other
it
up.
up?
What are you wearing?
Sorry for interrupting. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. And we did launch the new website, spencerNC.gov. All of our old domains are now redirected to that, and we're going to continue to keep that fresh and live going forward. And I know I've actually got a call tomorrow set up with Alderwoman Sledge to talk about some feedback she has, so look forward to that. But that process, we're glad to be in this phase of it, and right in the, of course, in the midst of that transition, we did have some coincidental timing, some issues with our email related to renewal of our old domains and such, but fortunately our team was able to get things resolved after just a few days. So the only other thing I wanted to mention, and this is actually on behalf of Mr. Morris, who had to leave the meeting earlier, but we do like to make you aware of grant opportunities and ask for your permission to apply for grants. And there was an opportunity that's come up from the Salisbury Rowan Community Foundation, a grant that we believe, a $10,000 grant that we'd like to apply for to go towards our Yadkin River Trailhead project. And so certainly wanted to make you aware of that. And if you'd like more information about it, we can pass that along. But we like to let you know before we apply for a grant, and then also after it's been awarded, we like to let you know about that too.
All right, any questions from the board on that? Peter, would you like formal action from the board to authorize us to pursue that grant?
That would be great.
Is the board willing to do that?
What grant?
Make a motion that we insert Peter to apply for this grant, please. $10,000 grant.
Would it be Peter or would it be Joe?
Excuse me.
Town staff would be
Town
fine.
staff.
Town
Town
staff.
staff.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Miller Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Now, any further discussion?
Yeah, what grant? What are you talking about? What grant? Is there something in writing? Where's it at?
Just describe
Yeah,
the grant, please.
this is something that Mr. Morris has become aware of in the last day or so. The Salisbury Rowan Community Foundation has a grant cycle that he's become aware of, and it appears it would be something we might have
What is the grant for?
to go towards our Yak and River Trail project.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I'm just trying to figure out what is it for. I'm the only one not just sitting here going, okay, you blindsided me with something else. So tell me what it
That's
is.
what
If
it's
it ain't in writing.
And again, if you'd like any additional information, we could pass that along. Unfortunately, Mr. Morris if he were here, he'd probably be able to fill you in better. He had to leave, but
What is the grant application deadline?
I unfortunately don't know, but it's going to be, actually, I'm sorry. I think the deadline is September 10th. Your September pre-agenda is September 9th. And so we wanted to try to talk to you about it today if possible, rather than wait till September 9th at a pre-agenda.
Okay, so then at pre-agenda meeting, we'll be able to review the finalized package and authorize all that then to be submitted by the 10th, correct?
Or you can email some stuff in between.
Absolutely.
Between now and then, pre-agenda also.
Yep.
If that's,
We just need to give them authorization to move forward and pursue it.
Go for it.
All right, so there is a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? All right, all opposed? We'll give Mr. Miller an opportunity. We just, all in favor of the motion.
He's again it.
We have 5-4. What is your vote?
No, 4.
4. All right, very good.
The intention on the left, so you wouldn't have to vote.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, I did have a question. Can you give the board a quick update on the H23 local UTV legislation and what our path forward as a board might be over the next month or so?
thank you. And I'll also glad Mr. Dees is sitting here beside me. But I need to flip back to the right page, but we did, find out, earlier this year, there was a general legislation that called Senate Bill 241, which allowed modified utility vehicles to operate on certain public roads. We had some local legislation that H23 that is now giving local authority to regulate utility vehicles, which is kind of a lower threshold of standards within the town of Spencer. It was passed a few weeks ago in the Senate and enrolled. And so now there's the opportunity for the Board of Aldermen to consider an ordinance update to allow this. And currently, the town attorney and the police chief have been talking about the process of what that looks like and how procedurally, what sections of the ordinance would be best. But I believe one of the thoughts was perhaps an amendment where the golf carts are already authorized to also include this in a similar fashion. And Mr. Dees, if you want to add anything.
No, I think it's sort of early in the phase of development. I think we had some discussions about this more than a year ago with regard to sort of a specific situation. There was a request to allow a golf cart use, and so there's some things that you're going to have to consider with regard to your standards when we get a draft to you. But we have the authority to do it now. The statutes limit it to certain locations and streets and street speeds, but it sets certain standards for the golf cart or the UTV. But there are going to be a couple of issues that you're going to have to sort of talk about with regard to licensing and insurance and registration processes and things like that that we had talked about before. And so we'll work on a draft and get it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Dees. And so just a reminder for the board, this is based on a resolution that we passed about a year or so ago. And I do want to thank Representative Harry Warren for shepherding this through the state legislature. They made it possible for us to now control our own destiny, I guess, with the UTVs, if you will. So we are one of a select handful of municipalities in the state that have this authority now to be able to regulate those on our streets. And so, of course, they won't be able to be used on state-maintained roadways, just town of Spencer, but we will be working through that. Jay, do we have a timeline for when we might think the board might see something on this?
We haven't created an action timeline yet, but it's up to you. We'll probably have a draft by your next working meeting. Just take a look at.
Okay.
Of course, one thought is that the general legislation takes effect October 1st. And so it could be that it makes sense for this to also take effect, if desired, the same time frame, unless that's too ambitious. But it could be that you have something on the September agenda.
Well, we've put the staggering terms and stuff on you, Jay. I'm sorry, but now we're doing this. Oh, no, I'm not sorry. And now we're doing this with UTV. Is it something that can be done by the October 1st for you, drawing up more stuff? It would be nice if you could.
Well, there's a public hearing to adopt an ordinance, so you've got to fit a public hearing in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But that you would have to, October 1st, you have to back into your regular meeting in September is when you would have to take action.
Right.
And so, I'm trying to think if we could have a notice for a public hearing. I mean, you would have to authorize that at your working meeting. I'm not sure that you could do it between your working meeting, your pre-agenda meeting, and your regular September meeting to authorize us to do that, because you won't have seen it yet.
And I guess not to put you on the spot right now, maybe if you can just.
Peter's ambition drives a lot of what I do.
Yeah.
His ambitious goals.
Yeah.
But I guess to give you an opportunity to map out what those dates might be.
I would probably suggest that a public hearing at your regular October meeting, which is your more attended meeting, and then adoption at your November meeting would be the more likely scenario.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to have a public hearing at your pre-agenda meeting. I think it's something that you would probably want to make sure that it's at a regular meeting, just from an attendance standpoint.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. All right, the next item is Resolution 21-016 to establish the Salisbury Avenue Corridor Improvement Grant.
I do want to provide a good level of detail for this proposal, since it may be a major program moving forward, or it has the potential to be a program that we can build on moving forward. But the basics are, the item under consideration is a proposal that's been approved by the CAC to repeal and replace the town's commercial facade grant program. The program we're currently working on, or we're working under, is it's a $500 facade grant. That's what we've been doing in the past. It provides $500 for commercial and residential rehab projects. It's been a good program in the past. We've been able to use it to good effect, but I think what we intend to do moving forward is establish a more comprehensive program for making sure that the funds that the town spends are going towards high quality projects. And so this particular proposal would establish what we're calling the Salisbury Avenue Corridor Improvement Grant. And if we want to shorten that, we can just call it the Salisbury Avenue Grant. But the new program does a number of things, and I want to go through them in a little bit of a careful detail. All right, so the basics is that the program would empower the CAC to review application proposals and to issue the awards. And so I guess that's the largest procedural change, is that in the past, any facade grant that the town receives would go to the Board of Aldermen for review and approval. Because y'all have authorized $10,000 annually, or this year, for this program, what we're proposing is that in order to make sure that our CAC feels that they have important work to do, to make sure that they're taking their role seriously, and of course they are, and also to make sure that they feel empowered and part of the governance process of the town, we do want to allow the CAC to make the awards. And so that would be a major change moving forward. If you approve this program, then you would no longer be receiving facade grant proposals. Those would all go to the CAC to be part of their regular responsibilities. In terms of the amount of the award, it would increase from $500 to $2,000. At least that's what we're doing for this year. Like I mentioned when I began, I do think that this program has the potential to grow over time, particularly if we demonstrate success with how we're using the money and we're able to encourage property owners to maybe deliver projects that are maybe more creative or innovative than maybe we're typically seeing. If we see this program delivering, then I think it would be an option for us to expand this program moving forward, either to increase the amount of the grant from $2,000 to a higher amount, such as $5,000, or seek additional grant opportunities to bolster the program. Just a quick note on that is we have already applied for a Duke Energy Foundation grant, which would add an additional $20,000 to this particular program. And so, we haven't received award notice yet, but if we do receive that, then this year we will be working with a total of $30,000 for our commercial facade grant program. Another change that this program does is it clarifies the procedure and the application submittal requirements. Y'all all have a copy of the proposed grant guidelines. Whereas our previous guidelines were only 1 page long, these are 10 or 11 pages long. And that's of course not to dissuade people from applying, but it's just to make sure that we have a robust program moving forward that clarifies how proposals will be reviewed and how the CAC will make their determinations. The proposal expands the eligible properties to include all commercial properties along the Salisbury Avenue corridor and within our downtown district. And I do want to clarify, because I believe this may be a question that you ask. For the historic district, our HPC will be developing a new historic preservation incentive grant in the coming months to sort of complement this. So our historic districts and our residential properties will be covered, and our commercial properties will be covered through this grant. Sort of making sure that both commissions have a grant program to administer. I think that'll be a good way to get commission buy-in moving forward. And in terms of the actual projects that we're looking to fund, the current grant is primarily tailored towards repair projects, things like minor facade repairs, repainting. What we're trying to do with this new program is encourage people to maybe think outside the box. One of the things that I've heard repeatedly since I've joined the town is that we want to make sure that our downtown actually captures people's attention. That when people are visiting the Transportation Museum, when they're coming through town, they'll see items of visual interest that will attract their attention and encourage them to patronize our businesses. And so what this new program does is it expands the list of eligible improvements to include a wide range of new project types. And I'm just going to read these briefly. They include, but are not limited to, enhancements to building facades, landscapes, driveways, and parking lots, repairs to deteriorated facades and facade elements, and the installation of new pedestrian amenities such as outdoor seating and dining, projecting signage, art, planters, awnings, cafe fencing, lighting, umbrellas and canopies, utility screens, and other street furniture. And so really what the CAC and what we're trying to accomplish with this is to make sure that if someone is applying for town funds, that the funds we award are used for projects that are either creative, innovative, or are transformational to that facade. You would still have the opportunity to apply for minor repairs, but what this does is it empowers the CAC to award money to those projects which most affirmatively further the goals of the town. And so that gets to my last point, which is that this new program establishes a new system for prioritizing projects based on established criteria and merit. It's sort of like how our HPC program works. We make decisions based on adopted standards. What this program would do is the CAC would issue awards based on the quality of the project as evaluated by adopted established standards. And of course, priority consideration is going to be given to proposals that make highly visible and significant design contributions to Spencer. Top priority will be given to projects that represent an exceptional improvement to the quality, character, and economic development potential of the Salisbury Avenue corridor by transforming severely blighted or inactive facades or landscapes into vibrant, active ones with appropriate and high-quality materials and elements. And so I will reiterate that the primary change of this program is it expands the amount of the award and it changes how we review them, and it empowers the CAC to make those awards. And so before I move on, I will ask, are there any questions at this point in terms of how the program is drafted right now?
So Kyle, I do have a question related to the impact, because now what you're proposing is this grant program will apply for commercial properties only, and it will replace the previous facade grant program.
Mm-hmm.
And then for residential properties, you're saying the HBC is working to develop a similar program for residential properties. Will that only be within the historic district?
It'll be within the historic district as well as any homes that have deferred maintenance needs. So it essentially will cover all of our housing stock.
Okay, that's the key point that I wanted to make sure that we were not reducing the scope of our previous program, that we were expanding it.
Yes, there will be no properties that lose eligibility for grant funding.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, Mr. Miller?
Mr. Harris, thank you very much. You're doing an outstanding good job. Question is, explain to me, because it says the map will be included. What do you mean by Main Street corridor or the Main Street district? Tell me, where does that mean? What does that mean?
Yes, so the eligibility area will be any commercial properties that front US 29 from Salisbury to the river. And I know once you get up closer to the river, you start seeing less properties. But we do see a number of these buildings that were built for highway business oriented uses over the past many, many decades are falling into a state of deterioration. And so even though this $2,000 is fairly modest, what my goal would be to work with property owners to see, using this as an incentive to see what the town can do to leverage its assets to make sure that we're preventing further deterioration of these properties. But yes, in terms of the eligibility area, it will be all properties along Salisbury Avenue as well as all properties within our downtown district.
And define downtown. I mean, do
It's-
you include
yes.
Park Plaza?
Yes, it's any, with our new zoning map,
Right.
our new downtown district is actually called the Main Street District, MS
Okay.
District. And so any property within that district will be eligible.
So it aligns specifically with our new zoning district.
All right. Now, if I'm not mistaken, down below the packaging company, the city limits ends. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then we have a no man's land that's actually in the county.
Mhm.
And then when we get down to the river, or we inherit some of that property.
Correct.
But you're not including these businesses in this no man land. Is that correct?
I don't believe that the ETJ will be an appropriate area to extend this program, primarily because, well, for a number of reasons, but I think we will restrict this program to our corporate limits.
Part of the other consideration is this is a taxpayer-funded program.
I agree. But I just
So-
want to make sure we know, because there are some businesses, and fairly good businesses, in this county area, I guess you could say, as far as it goes.
But I think the intent of the program is, because it is funded by taxpayer dollars, that those businesses that are paying taxes in our corporate limits would benefit from it.
Okay.
Well, I think there's a question there. Is it solely taxpayer funded, or is this group going to seek private dollars?
So they have sought $20,000 in grant opportunities from the Duke Energy Foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, and that won't be the last, will it? I mean, will they be able to seek other dollars from other groups?
I think just like any program we have the opportunity to creatively seek additional sources of funding. It would just, like earlier when you approved the $10,000 grant from the Community Foundation in Salisbury, we could explore options like that, but we certainly would seek the appropriate approvals before we added funds to the program.
One thing I would note about this particular
for the Duke Energy Foundation grant, the requirements of that grant was that it has to be applied for by a nonprofit organization to do work within a community. And so the Salisbury Community Development Corporation is actually the entity seeking these grant funds to provide into Spencer, in this case.
Okay, so this group is not a 501c3, correct?
No, because it's being administered through our community appearance groups.
So all the dollars will go into town funds?
Yes, so I recognize there's a little bit of it's a little confusing the way we've done it with the Duke Energy Foundation grant. What happened was we had a very short window of opportunity to apply for that grant. So at the Salisbury CDC, we went ahead and applied for it. And if we receive those funds, the CDC will essentially partner with the town to make sure those funds go towards businesses that have received a grant from the CAC. So if the CAC were to issue an award, let's say we do get that $20,000. If the CAC gets a proposal from a property owner who wants to fix up their facade, and let's say the town has already run out of the $10,000 we budgeted, then the CDC can, provide those funds. We'll work it out to make sure it's a seamless process. But yes, I guess the short answer is we would always want to look for additional funding where we can to improve our programs.
And I think that's, again, one of the benefits of working with the Community Development Corporation is, that we're able to partner with that organization to increase what we're putting towards some of these projects and have a partner in that. So that's good.
I got a question. I like everybody on the CAC as far as that goes, but I'm really having problems with them administrating these, awarding these funds, because really I think it needs to come in front of this board as well.
I agree.
I mean,
There's
these
no
people,
way that
these people,
people
no
can be
offense,
messed with
these people were appointed by individuals like us on the board, but the town business, and I'm not trying to get a big head for anybody on this committee, but I really think the people that voted for us expects us to make the decisions of what's good and what's not. And like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from the CAC. And I respect their rights to do this. I respect their submissions and telling me this is their recommendations, but I really have a hard time with them administrating these dollar amounts to these
And
businesses.
so that's what I was going to ask. Can we give them the authority to administer the program as basically they're going to run through the criteria and make a recommendation for award to our board, but the board ultimately approves those recommendations?
Correct. That's the way I would like to see it, because I think that's the way, again, that's the way I think it should be. We talked about that Thursday night as far as that goes on another issue.
Right. So any other feedback from the board on that specifically?
Well, there's some things in here I had questions about too. And I agree that the board should have some oversight here, as far as the expansion of the monies. But you talk about removal of dilapidated buildings and removal of non-compliant signs. Is that something that the CAC would have sole discretion on? And then, you've talked about receiving these applications for the grants during the first quarter of the fiscal year and containing periodically as needed until all available funding has been awarded. Would it make sense to have all the grant applications come in at a specific time and have them judged on their merit then, rather than waiting until maybe a great grant comes in November and there's no money left?
That's certainly an option, and what I'll say I'll respond to that question first, and then I'll talk about the dilapidated buildings. There are two main ways that I'm sorry, could you repeat your question? I'm so sorry. No, just get me right on the right track.
Okay, I ask about the removal of dilapidated
Yes.
buildings and the removal of non-compliant signs,
But
and ask if the CAC would be the sole determining factor on those. And then the other question I had was about.
Let's take one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
Okay.
didn't know which one he was asking me about.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was on the dilapidated buildings. This is primarily if there's let's say we have a property that has some sort of dilapidated accessory structure is primarily what I'm thinking in terms of that. If someone has applied for a grant to substantially rehab let's say they want to build beautify their parking lot and there's an accessory structure, we do find a lot of those in our commercial properties along Salisbury Avenue. They could request funds to assist with the removal of that. That's just an example of a project, and that's in a list of a dozen other examples. I think primarily this program would be oriented, towards improvement of existing facades instead of demolition of accessory structures. But it's just one among many options, including the signage.
But again, you're gonna have to receive receipts showing that they spent at least $2,000 for its removal of buildings or something like that, correct?
Yes. So the way this program will work is we have a much more clarified application process and timeline for how things are done.
Right.
So a proposal for a grant needs to be completely reviewed and approved before you even begin the project. Okay. And then there will be periodic inspections. And then once the project is finished, they have to show, paid invoices. And then we'll meet for a closeout inspection.
Will the CAC committee go and do these inspections, or you or Sky will do these?
I will probably be doing the inspections.
Okay.
As a staff person associated with the program,
Okay.
it would be me doing that.
All right.
Okay, and then my second question was, would it make sense to set a time frame
Yes.
for applications to risk running out of money at the end of the year when there might be good projects still?
Right. Okay. And I remember I'm on track now. So there are two ways of doing that primarily. You can either, and I'm going back on my experience in Salisbury where we're administering similar programs. In Salisbury, the facade grant program that they administered was funded on a rolling basis. So as they received applications, they were able to review them and make awards. The benefit of doing it that way is that you can work more quickly with property owners. You provide sort of better customer service, and you're not telling someone to wait a year before they hear back. Because a lot of times, a year's delay, they're just going to forget about it. Now, if we were to do it on, let's say, we have an established application window period per year. If we went that direction, I would recommend having maybe twice a year, so a 6-month time frame. That way, it's not an entire year, but it does provide you're getting all the applications at once, and you can evaluate their merit all together. There's no best way to do it. I would recommend as we start it for this first year to do it on the rolling basis, and then if we do see that it would be better to move to an alternative model, we could certainly revise the guidelines. But I would like to get started implementing this relatively quickly to see if there are any changes we need to make. But there are pros and cons to both approaches.
Okay.
Any input from the board on that item?
I'm going to back up Alderman. Over there on the end. Already. It's getting late.
Hey, you, that guy?
You remember me?
Yeah, that guy over there on the end. Steve. Anyways.
Okay, thank you.
Monies. Anytime you talk about community money and we got to make decisions on community money and it's all a great idea, Kyle. Everything that you're throwing in front of us is, crystal clear as mud, but it's still one of those things where we're right here. We're trying to get you where we're trying to figure out what you're trying to do with this. It looks good and everything. Also, when it comes to money, when you talk about money and mess with community money, that's where we get touchy and I get touchy and go, wait a minute. It's fine that the civilian board get to come in and do their thing and y'all get together and figure out things. But when it comes to the money part, it still needs to come back to the BOA. Because at the end of the day, we're the elected officials. We don't appoint. we appoint, but we're not appointed. We're elected, so.
Mhm.
And if, even the manager's got to do it, so I don't see why you wouldn't think that you wouldn't have to do it with this program.
So that being the case, I mean, and I'm in complete agreement. I think the way to address that is within those guidelines. It's pretty straightforward. You say all proposed projects must be reviewed and approved by the CAC before any work has begun in order to be eligible for the grant. The CAC reserves the right to accept or reject any request, require modifications, and so on. And so really, I think it's a matter of changing that to state that all proposed projects must be reviewed and recommended by the CAC and approved by the Board of Aldermen before any work has begun. And then also then the CAC and Board of Aldermen reserves the right to accept or reject any request, require modifications. Now, I haven't looked through the rest of it to see if that addresses that issue,
It does.
but I think I believe that it does. And basically what we would have then is the CAC reviewing all the applications in coordination with you, and they would provide a recommendation to our board, and the board ultimately approves or denies that recommendation.
Does the planning board have any piece of this?
Not in this grant program.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
One quick question, and you've probably said this before. Are rental properties, residences eligible for this? When the landlord applies, or does it have to be homes that are being purchased by the citizens who are living in?
Well, and that's for the Historic Preservation Incentive Grant, which we haven't finalized guidelines for. At this time, I would say that the program probably should include rental properties just because we do have a large number of them. And if we have property owners, landlords who are willing to cooperate with us, we would certainly want to improve those houses as well.
I've had several ask me, that's why I wasn't sure.
And for
And-
commercial properties, especially with this program, because we've got a lot of folks that own buildings that then have tenants. I think Park Plaza several years back could have really benefited from this program.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition to supporting what you were saying about not having a comment for a DOA, but the problem I have is with the soliciting for outside funds that are not public funds that seem like they're earmarked for that project, where the CAC wants the authority to review and to spend those monies as they deem fit without any consultation with the Board of Aldermen.
But again, they're not, because, all right.
Well, that's how it's written now.
Let me make it, well, right, and that's what,
Oh,
right,
okay.
we're proposing, that, but the outside funding, that's through the Community Development Corporation in Salisbury. That's not, it's a different entity than the CAC. The CAC is our appointed, Community Appearance Commission. Those funds would basically be administered in a similar way, and we would still, as a board with these changes, have to approve any expenditures of those as well.
We're talking about the CAC spending, not through the CDC,
No,
right?
no,
Yeah,
You're talking about directly by the CAC, right?
No, well, that's how it's written now, and what
Oh.
we're saying is we want to change that so that they provide us with a recommendation, and then we have to vote on that recommendation whether or not we want to award that.
Yes, and I will clarify that. The way the guidelines are currently written, it would give sole authority to the CAC to review and make awards based on the guidelines that you adopted. But the feedback I'm hearing is that you would like the CAC's role to be to recommend to y'all, and y'all would make the final decision. And that's something we can certainly do. I think it can easily be done with these guidelines. And I'll be happy to make those changes.
Ms. Sledge.
I did have one other question, and this is sort of related, but maybe not directly, but who provides oversight for the CDC? Not the CAC, the CDC, the Community Development Corporation.
So,
Who's
yes, this, well, I'll answer that, and I'll answer another question too that I know is formulating.
many
The
CDC.
CDC in Salisbury is the Salisbury Community Development Corporation.
Right.
They are a HUD
Right.
agency that is audited and is responsible for annual compliance with the federal law. We have auditors who come in and make sure that we're spending the money we receive as a nonprofit in a responsible way. And so, we have the federal oversight at the CDC. just to confirm that, yes, the CDC is regulated. It's a regulated agency.
And if I could just jump in, the reason the CDC is in this conversation is that became aware of a grant opportunity that the town of Spencer was ineligible to be an applicant. A nonprofit organization had to apply for these funds, and the CDC was a natural partner to say, is this something that you could do? And
And that's where that $750,000 grant that we
Yes.
have came
Yes.
through.
Well, the CDC is administering that as well.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Okay. That answered my question.
Mr. Miller.
Okay, I think you want somebody to make a resolution, adopt this resolution, so I don't know if we need to make it in a form of motion. Make these changes, a little bit of those changes on it.
Well, and that's a question. The resolution specifically does not, it would not preclude us from passing the resolution to approve this program.
Right.
With the direction
Direction.
to Kyle,
That we
the
gave.
guidelines have to be changed
Right.
to indicate specifically that the board has the ultimate decision-making authority.
Correct, correct.
And what I can do is if you choose to adopt the resolution tonight, I can go back based on your feedback and change the guidelines so that when we do issue the guidelines and publish them, they will reflect that the Board of Aldermen will make the final decision on awards.
And I was going to ask, my thought is, if we approve the resolution tonight, is it possible then at the next meeting to approve a final adopted guideline version?
Yeah, I don't see any
I just
reason
want to
why
make
not.
sure that we have time to go through, you have time to go through and actually make any corrections that may be a result of us changing the authority on here.
Mhm. I think the edits will be fairly straightforward. I'll probably change a few bullet points in a few areas.
My thought is we can consider the resolution tonight in support of the program and then formally approve the guidelines.
I think that would probably work. There shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Mr. Bish.
I still have a question in regards to that part of the resolution where it says that the town's previous commercial rehab grant policy is hereby repealed. I don't see why that has to be repealed in order for you to do your thing, so I would not support this resolution with that text in there. I don't see any reason why at this moment that you have to repeal the existing commercial historic district and non-historic district rehab.
It's completely different.
If I could answer that, I think the existing commercial rehab grant policy is provided in Exhibit B, and if we were to adopt both programs, they would be working at cross purposes.
Yeah.
So
It's on your
the new
list.
program is meant to be an improved and bolstered facade grant program. So it really makes the old facade grant obsolete, and it would simply be redundant to continue to have it on the books.
The only issue with that is we will have a gap though in our residential facade grant program.
No, it will not. The resolution, the way I've worded it, is it repeals the. Let me go back. It repeals the commercial grant, but it retains the residential grant for the period that the HPC has not updated their incentive grant. So if you see at the end of the resolution at now therefore be it resolved on the bottom two lines, the town's previous commercial rehabilitation grant policy is repealed.
So the $500 residential will remain in effect until which time we have a different
That's
program
correct.
recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Do we
Does
still,
that clarify?
I understand that, but if the line is still,
we still have $10,000
the line is
for
still in the
that?
budget, but there's
For the
no dollar
$500
appropriated, it doesn't have to be
residential?
removed,
Is that,
you know,
we still have
just in case you wanna
$10,000
go back
allotted for
to it
that?
at some point. So if you repeal it, then you're gonna have to go to all these.
Well, I think the intent is that
just wanna
this
make sure.
program, for the commercial, this program replaces the old one. And so you don't want to have an antiquated program that's been usurped still on the books. Now, if for some reason we ever need to go back to it, we've got it in writing that we could always re-adopt it. But I don't think it's good practice that we have two similar grant programs, one that we know we're not going to use moving forward.
And I will also clarify the line items in the budget are the exact same. you know, whereas previously we had $2,500 for commercial facade grants and $2,500 for residential grants. We've upped both of those to 10,000, but it's still generally the same area in the budget. And so what we're doing with this program, I mean, we've already adopted the budget, so the budget is 10,000. So what this program would do was establish new guidelines for spending that money.
Does a residential $500 allotment come out of this $10,000?
No, that is, we've separately budgeted for the historic preservation grant.
So you got a separate account that will,
Yes, we have total $20,000.
$20,000. So the $10,000 will go for commercial and $10,000 will go for residential as well as historic. Is that
Yes,
correct? Okay, I understand.
All right, I'm going to read the resolution, go from there. Whereas on June 18th, 2021, the Spencer Board of Aldermen adopted the town's fiscal year 2021-22 annual budget, which included $10,000 for a new commercial property facade grant program to support improvements along the Salisbury Avenue corridor and in downtown Spencer. And whereas on June 28th, 2021, the Spencer Community Appearance Commission, CAC, voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Aldermen the adoption of a new Salisbury Avenue corridor improvement grant. And whereas the implementation of the Salisbury Avenue corridor improvement grant is necessary to encourage improvements to the visual and functional aspects of commercial properties consistent with the Spencer Future Land Use Plan. And whereas Salisbury Avenue is a primary gateway into downtown Spencer for many thousands of residents and visitors annually, with population forecasts projecting rapid growth in the Charlotte metropolitan area over the coming decades, it is likely that an increasing number of visitors will utilize the Salisbury Avenue corridor, and that their perceptions of Spencer and their willingness to return and patronize local businesses will be shaped in accordance with the corridor's quality and character. And whereas strengthening the visual and functional aspects of along Salisbury Avenue and in downtown Spencer will elevate the economic vitality of the town by encouraging improved goods and services, economic loyalty, mixed-use development, and infill. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Board of Aldermen that the Salisbury Avenue Corridor Improvement Grant Guidelines as recommended by the Community Appearance Commission are hereby adopted, and that the town's previous commercial, historic district, and non-historic district rehabilitation grant policy is hereby repealed. All right. Any further discussion on the text of the resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the resolution for the town of Spencer establishing the Salisbury Avenue Corridor Improvement Grant be approved.
All right. There is a motion by Ms. Sledge. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion from the board at this time? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, that is 5 votes for, all opposed. That is 1 vote against. The resolution passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you. And so just to say what we'll do, we will provide the updated guidelines next month to clarify what the final language will be.
Thank you. All right, next item. Kyle, you may want to stay up here. Is considering the appointment of Joshua James to the Historic Preservation Commission. Got to speak with Mr. James earlier. What's that? He has been waiting a long time. We appreciate that. All right. Any questions or discussion by the board at this time?
Yeah, I'll make a
When can you start?
I'll make a motion that we accept Mr. Johnson for the role.
All right. There is a motion to accept Mr. James
I'll
by Mr.
second it.
Miller. There's a second by Mr. Morgan. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That is approved unanimously. Welcome aboard.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Well, now we have our HPC and our CAC are fully staffed, and we just got to work on the planning board now.
And thank you all for your work in doing that, and for all the volunteers that have stepped up to be a part of those organizations. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, next is to consider authorizing the town manager to execute change order 5 for the town hall and police department project. That is attachment 16 in your agenda packet. Peter, you want to provide some insight and input?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This change order is change order number 5 for our Town Hall Police Department project. The two items included in this are, first, required electrical transformer preparation and connection that was required by Duke Energy. And the second is recommended repairs from the structural engineer. When the roofing work began and you previously approved some structural repairs to the roof, we asked the engineers to look into the rest of the building structure to see if there was anything else we needed to address while we were working on the building. And this amount represents bringing everything up to the standard they recommend for the building.
Thank you, Peter. And I will add with the electrical items that as we worked to consider this and review it, there were some have-to-haves, and then there were some Duke Energy we'd like you to haves. And we worked with Duke to determine which those like-to-haves were that weren't really necessary, and worked to cut those out of the proposed amendment. So this represents really what we have to have to establish new electrical service to the facility.
But all this wasn't known before the bidders.
It was not, and we actually, I got to sit in with the electrical engineer and talk with them and make sure, and, talk with the contractor as well. And this is a coordination item that really comes back to, through the design process, they know the loads. Duke Energy doesn't give the expectation for whether they're going to use an existing transformer or a new transformer. It wasn't anticipated that they were going to require us to have a ground mounted transformer. And then they came in and said, that's what you're going to have. And so, so that's kind of where that has come from. Duke provides the transformer.
Right.
So we don't pay for that necessarily, but we have to pay for all of the installation, the concrete pad, the wiring to it and everything like that.
Okay.
So that will still leave us with $24,407.28 in our contingency. I know I've said in the past that we're getting near the end. I'm not saying anything like that.
Yeah, you've already jinxed it.
I will say that,
three
that
times now.
sheetrock is being installed.
That's good.
Sheetrock is being installed, so as long as Peter doesn't, or Sherry doesn't change colors at this point, we won't be looking at anything like that.
Very good.
All right, any questions
No.
on this?
No.
All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the change order?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve change order number 5 for the Town Hall and Police Department project.
All right, there is a motion by Mr. Miller. Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? All right, and that is approved. All right, we are now to comments from mayor and board members. So we'll start with Mr. Miller.
Yeah, about that. Comments tonight. A year and a half ago, I started on this board, and I didn't know anybody that worked for the town hardly. And I have to say, in a year and a half, I have been very impressed with the staff we've had here with Dave Dream and Peter Francis. I can't single out anybody in particular, but I'm very proud that I am a small part of the team. And Peter, y'all do a great job with what you do for the town. People don't really appreciate it because they don't understand what goes on, but you got some great people working.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Morgan.
I'd like to second Steve's comments about the staff. I think we've been very fortunate. God has smiled down upon us, giving us great people. And there are things happening within the town. I'm hearing and seeing a renewed interest in our community, and I hope it continues. Hope it continues to spread with our churches, with our civic groups, and all of the rest of the things that go along with it.
Thank you. Ms. Hovis.
I'm just gonna come on the opposite end of it and tell this board, because everybody know the obvious with me. This is getting ready to be my 4th year, and this board right here is an outstanding board. You guys get involved. And what the citizens don't realize is this is just a civic duty. And we come up here, some of us come up here 2 times a week. We don't get paid. And we're here at these meetings like this right here, right now. And we are making decisions. But one of the things that I like about this board that I didn't see before is you guys ask questions. You're not rubber stamps. And I'm very proud of that. And to know that you guys are going to be the same board that's going to be happening in the next couple more months for the next 2 more years, I feel safe, even myself, knowing that you're making good decisions. And I will be one to tell you, for all those naysayers and the people who are bickering and in the peanut gallery in the back of the room kind of people, they don't realize if they were any kind of persons, they would go ahead and put their name on the ballot and stop complaining. But you guys aren't. Y'all aren't cheerleaders. Y'all are up here doing the job. And Jonathan, you're doing an outstanding job. And all I have to say to everyone, whether in this room right here with the staff and with this board right here, that everybody's doing a great job, and we can see the difference in Spencer. I know I can, and I've been here most of my life. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Sledge.
I had a piece of paper with me that apparently is still in my car, but
Go get it. Go get it.
there are 2 things that I wanted to say. The very first thing is I had the opportunity to attend some of the weekend meetings that were held in Salisbury in response to the reconciliation of violence that occurred here in Rowan County during the era of Jim Crow. And it was very moving. There was a group of both people of color and white people who were there at the church on Friday night for a very moving service. And, you know, I'm glad to see that sort of activity happening in our area. On Saturday, I didn't attend the other things. There was a discussion at the Episcopal Church, and then a demonstration and performances at St. John's Lutheran. I did not attend those because I was at a state meeting for the State Executive Committee of the Democrats. One of the things that came up there, and I would like to give our town consideration of this, is that there has been a call for resolutions across the state to adopt resolutions of non-discriminatory practices. And a number of towns across the state have already adopted those. We're being encouraged to adopt those throughout the state, and towns and towns and cities. And I would like to bring that to the board at our next meeting for consideration. And that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Bish.
The only comment that I want to bring up is the position or the where do we stand in regards to COVID-19? Has the town taken a position or using the position of the county, or how do we stand as far as position on COVID? And that's what I like to have that established pretty soon, but things are getting pretty bad out there. And I think people realize that it's happened across all age groups, against all conditions. Whether you have any biological problem at all, I think we need to establish something to this town as far as COVID-19.
And so what would you have in mind?
I don't know. We're gonna have to get a policy. We're gonna need to know where we stand, who's vaccinated, who's not, who's using the mask. Are we generating areas of contact that put people at risk? I mean, gotta come up with some type of policy that's gonna get us through this, because it's happening all around, and probably because we're in this trusting relationship. We've been here all throughout COVID from the beginning. And we've been meeting every month and quite a few times a month, and we're trusting up to a certain point. But now things can go sideways very quickly. So I'd like to see this board come up with some type of an agreement in regards to how we attack or prevent any unwarranted spread.
Ms. Seacrest?
I read today, right before we came up here, it's an email that came out today from the league, and they have some guidelines that they've established.
They do.
So maybe we could look at those, and they're encouraging municipalities to adopt. We may not have to invent that wheel, but.
Right. But Mr. Bish, that's a great point. We do need
Yeah.
to consider kind of operations going forward. I know some neighboring communities, Salisbury, for instance, they've gone back to all virtual meetings. Again, we've continued to meet in person throughout. What is interesting is, we do have guidance. We have great guidance from the scientific community and the CDC. And there are recommendations now that all people, vaccinated or unvaccinated, probably should wear masks inside. And I say that, and I'm not wearing one right now.
We didn't know.
But you do, you pass. I have one.
Yeah.
But that's something we should consider. Again, that is an item, I think that, there is some personal choice in this matter, just like with vaccination. But CDC, again, the data shows that the vaccination is likely going to prevent you from getting COVID. It may not entirely prevent you from getting COVID, but it's likely going to keep you out of the hospital and keep you
Well,
from
that's
dying.
where I disagree with you. And I don't want to get into a big argument about the policies of the United States in terms of Washington handing down edicts. I will say this, that I think that we need to start listening and looking at opinions and verification from doctors who think this is nothing more than a pandemic. There's going to be a big argument, and I don't want this country to dissolve itself into a scarlet letter type of confrontation where those people who have been vaccinated are on one side of the fence and those who refuse to be vaccinated on the other. The vaccine itself does not prevent you from getting COVID. Now that is established fact. Vaccines are supposed to prevent you from getting a disease, but this one doesn't.
Well, now,
And there's so many arguments out there that I agree with Bob that we need to look at this in terms of policies. But again, it's, I'm not running scared from this. It's the flu. It's a variation of the flu. And the very doctor who is dictating from Washington is the same doctor who 30 years ago was involved in bioweapons research. There's a lot of unknown factors, and I think that we need to approach this from an open mind, and also to take into consideration those voices that are out there that have been saying this is all a big sham from start, instead of being labeled as a bunch of quacks. So if we are going to consider any kind of policy, then I think that that's probably something that we need to set aside some time and sit around and get opinions from everyone before we establish any kind of policy.
And where I was going to go with that, and you see it on multiple sides of the table, everybody has their opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and everybody's entitled to make their own decisions, whether they get the vaccine or not, whether they mask or not. We are at the point that we have a tool to fight the vaccine that science has shown. Whether you believe in that, or agree with it or not, you have the personal choice whether or not you get that vaccine. And so that being the case, you know, I think it's maybe perhaps a little premature for us to try and dictate a policy moving forward. I think for our board, we do have a decision to make about how we continue to conduct business as a board. And that, frankly, probably is where our authority in this matter needs to end.
Right. It's
And so the question, I guess, would be, how does the board want to continue moving forward? Do we want to continue meeting in person? Do we want to go back to physically distancing? What is the pleasure of the board?
In my opinion, if the cases start multiplying within more than what we have, I'm all about us going back to where we were doing the distance and the Zoom and staff in the other room. 'Cause this isn't going away, regardless whether you take the shot or not. It is what it is. People are dying. People are still dying. And so that news isn't made up. They didn't just die just because all of a sudden they're saying it's COVID. So I don't know, but we've got a lot of elderly. We've got, you know, I got to include myself in on the elderly now. So, I mean, there you go. And then the immune systems of others. We're making everybody out there in the audience susceptible to each other right now. I mean, we don't know. But what we do know is we need to do right by everybody, whether we dislike it or not. It's just like rules. There's a lot of rules that's been made we don't like, but we got to follow them. Run a red light if you want to. But that's where we are. So we make that decision. In my opinion, we need to go back to where we were before. And that's everybody sitting away from each other, staff in the other room, mask on.
I guess my question is, where's the threshold? You know, at what point do we say too many people have been infected? We need to back off.
It's a good question. I mean, I have my own opinions, and I think everyone out there has a choice, except for our staff, which we require them to be here. But anybody that wants to come and participate, we have a tool to fight the vaccine. It's their choice whether or not they come and participate. You know, you look out there, we had a good group here tonight, but we definitely have chairs spread farther apart than we have in the past, and everybody has the ability, if they want to wear a mask, they can. The same for our board. We have a personal choice. We have a choice if we get vaccinated. We have a choice if we wear a mask. And so, you know, I think we are at the point, because we do have a tool. 6 months ago, we didn't, 6 months ago, we didn't have a tool. We have a tool. So my recommendation would be, you know, we can definitely go back to the distancing of our board if we want to, if that's the pleasure of the board. I would say beyond this dais, we allow people to have a personal choice in the matter, because there is a tool to fight it. And I think it's a personal choice whether or not we wear a mask. But based on what I'm hearing from others, I will have my mask on from now on. Not for me, but for each of you. Thoughts?
I think we just need to continue listening to the data that's released and make decision maybe later will be at that point. Maybe we'll avoid it.
We will continue to know
The
more.
vaccination rate has gone up in Wilmington.
this stuff is going to be with us until we all croak. Okay,
I don't plan on
it's
this.
well,
I've already
it's
had it.
this is just one strain of the flu.
I know that.
It does not go away. It will never
Sam,
go
I know
away.
that.
Okay. And I refuse to live in fear anymore.
not living
Okay.
in fear, but
And
I'm
I'm not.
living in
I
respect.
don't believe half the crap
Well, that's
that
fine. You don't have
is
to believe
dictated
it.
from Washington
You don't
D.C.
have to
about it.
believe it, but there are people that do.
I know, because they're being led down a false road
disagree.
and a false path.
But we
Yes, the
disagree
virus
on those
is real
things.
and people have died and suffered from it.
One
As
of them
people
was one of
have
my
died and
closest
suffered
friends.
from pandemics in the past. But we
Well,
can't continue to
saying
live
anything,
in
I'm not
fear,
saying
okay? Until when? 10 years, 20 years from now?
I'll do whatever I have to do to keep children safe.
So here's the thing. As you see, again, these are issues that we agree on a lot as a board. But there's some things we're not ever going to agree on, and that's fine. But it goes back to the fact that it's a matter, I think, of personal choice at this point. I think the only thing we really need to consider as a board right now is if we are going to here all sit together at the dais or spread out.
Well, if someone's uncomfortable being here, they could always Zoom.
Correct.
me,
And
like I
truthfully,
did when I had
we could put on a mask. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
just put on a darn mask.
Right.
Sam don't make me that uncomfortable. Only when he started getting loud
I
like
brushed
that
my
nowadays.
teeth. I brushed my teeth before I came.
But did you use mouthwash?
No.
The problem is I'm worried about him biting me.
And believe me, this is a very, very confusing time. It's gotten to the point where people don't know who to believe, okay? Because there's so much contradicting information that's out there. What I don't want to see is what I said before, is the country being forced to adopt this, they have the vaccine, they don't like the thing. You're going to have more problems with that in terms of freedoms being trampled on than anything that has come before.
I want us, though, to remember, we can't change what the rest of the country is going to do. We control what happens here.
That's true.
And that's where our focus needs to be right now.
Exactly.
So it sounds to me like we will continue to operate as we are operating with the choice to wear masks. Those that may be uncomfortable, or that may have health concerns that preclude them from being here in person, we will continue to make virtual meetings available as we have done until we are through the worst of this pandemic. Is the board in agreement with that?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Can
Mayor
I
Pro
say what
Tem,
I was gonna
you may
say?
say what you were going to say.
Okay, everyone talked about how wonderful our staff is, and I would put them above anybody else in Rowan County. I mean, I think they're top notch. And our citizens are, we had these big events, we didn't have any issues, we didn't have any problems, I thought that was wonderful. I am so impressed also with the high quality of our volunteers. I would guess that a town this size in this state does not have the quality of volunteers that we have. We have wonderful volunteers here in this town. And I am proud every time they come up before us and they present themselves because they are so professional also. So I am just going to end it on a very positive note. I'm just real, real proud to live here in Spencer. I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen it better.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I will close us out tonight with just a couple of brief thoughts. I think we've spent the last year and a half battling a pandemic that, as you heard, is not anywhere close to being done. But despite that, despite the challenges that any small town faces, I am incredibly excited about the trajectory that our town is on. There are good things happening. It's not very often that you have somebody come into a meeting during public comment and announce that they're giving you a $250,000 check.
Not very often.
These are things that we need to celebrate.
Sure.
And we need to remember not to get too focused in on the minutia of things that distract us from the larger visions that our board has for this town. There are things to work through, but we need to keep our eye on the prize. I am incredibly excited because over the past several weeks, I've been having conversations with businesses outside of our community, some local, some more regional, and have gotten an incredible response to people that are interested coming to locate their businesses in the town of Spencer because they see the potential.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that despite all of the challenges we faced in the last year and a half, we need to look back and celebrate the wins because there have been a lot of them. But I think we're just on the precipice of that. And I think that you're going here over the next several months to see quite a few more wins for the town of Spencer. So I'm excited to work with each of you, Peter and your staff. We've got a good team here, and I'm excited to be part of Team Spencer. So thanks for all of you are doing. And with that concludes my remarks. I would request that we briefly go into executive session for the purpose of personnel and legal, if there is a motion to do so.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, we are in closed session.